cruise control or rider modes?
Rider modes.
What's more important, bike weight or adjustable suspension?
Bike weight.
What's more important, horsepower or torque?
Torque.
Which is a bigger priority to you, service intervals or factory toolkit?
Service intervals.
Which do you like better, adjustable windscreen, TFT display?
Adjustable windscreen.
Which do you prefer, LED lights or removable passenger pegs?
LA days.
Which items do you want to come from the factory, folding shift lever or skid plate?
A skid plate.
Hey, what's up, podcast? Welcome back to another episode of Moto Adventure Unscripted. I'm your host, Drew Faulkner. Mark is on the other side of the podcast again today, and we are talking about the middleweight adventure market. The two of us swapped bikes earlier this year and have spent a lot of time on multiple middleweight adventure bikes over the years. And so today we basically talk about what are the options out there, what are the benefits of buying some of those different bikes, and have some stat sheet racing, even though we have actual experience riding these bikes, and deciding what do we think the best middleweight adventure bikes are for the different interests that folks have. As usual, we want to hear from you, the listeners. Hit us with email, motoadvr@gmail.com. We love the feedback from the listeners. Grab your beverage of choice, turn it up wherever you're listening, and we hope you enjoy the show. All right, sir. So when you were here, oh my God, that feels like forever ago.
It was forever ago.
We switched bikes for a minute. You got to ride the 10RA. I got to ride the 1090. And then you and I started comparing notes about all these middleweight bikes that we've ridden. I'm a sucker for middleweight. Like, I think this is probably the best flavor of adventure bikes, both that are hitting the market, and I think it's not necessarily the ideal, like, right size for adventure riding, but I think it's definitely, you know, people are being more sensible, right? Like, I don't really need a 1300cc adventure bike, especially if I'm going to go off-road, right?
Yeah,
so I wanted to do an episode where you and I can basically talk about what's available on the market, kind of compare notes about the different bikes we've ridden and some of the experiences with them, basically for the interest of people that are listening who are thinking about these bikes, or better yet, didn't realize that these bikes are available and these are some of the features that are on them. And then I kind of want to do a little, we'll say, stat sheet racing for excuse me, for lack of a better term. Like, talk about, you know, what's best performance, what's best value, what's the target adventure bike like for you, and go back and forth across some of that stuff. Does that make sense?
Makes good sense to me, dude. I totally agree that the middleweight bike, displacement is becoming very, very interesting over the last couple of years. So can't wait to tear into this a little bit.
Yeah, and for the listeners' benefit on the front end, as with everything adventure and dual sport, those terms are labels and they're very vague, and it depends on who you're talking to. So for today's conversation, I'm considering the Africa Twin and the KTM 1090 and the Desert X middleweight. There's lots of reasons why we shouldn't consider those middleweight, and that's fine, but we are. And at the same time, I'm not really going to get into the KLR 650. We could put that in the middleweight too if we wanted to, and that's totally fine. But in this case, I'm like, I didn't feel like it was of merit to put in there. So
when Drew told me he was going to call my 1090 a middleweight, I was like, okay. So, yeah, it's debatable, right?
It's funny, right? Because it's a long podcast. We have lots of time, so we might as well get into that piece of it. You know, a few years ago, it was like you had 1200s and you had 800s, and that was kind of the way it was. And then KTM bumped their 990 to 1090 and 1190, and they did that whole thing. And then Honda brings an Africa Twin out as 1,000. You know, they had neither, right? Like, they didn't have a big bike and a small bike, so Honda just shoehorned in right in the middle. And so now that BMW has officially made a 1300, KTM has a 1290, Triumph is still doing a 1200. But
for some reason.
Yeah, but when we look at statistics and you look at weight and all that other stuff, like, it still makes sense to put those bikes in the middleweight, partially like horsepower is a whole thing. What's ridiculous, like the 1090 is like 100 plus.
Yep.
Even the Honda is very close to 100. But when you look at how much these bikes weigh, even the small ones, what is it? Suzuki's bike is still 500 plus pounds. The Africa Twin is actually lighter than the new Suzuki 800.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying is I'm like, like what is middleweight? Like if weight alone is the definition.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah, and the statistics of the Africa Twin are still like, it's like 9+ inches of suspension travel, right? Like, so they still have very competitive suspension travel, despite the fact that the bike is seen as heavy when you park it next to a Tenere or an Aprilia Touareg and that kind of thing.
Or if you're pushing it around in a parking lot.
Yes, absolutely.
That steel tank of the Africa Twin is not to be denied.
No, and that's the whole reason why I wanted to have this conversation is like, hey, if we can circle this around, and I think it's fair. I mean, obviously, you've spent time on the 1090. I've ridden the Africa Twin. I like it. I almost bought one. I'm like, you know what? Let's throw some of this stuff out in the ether. I like a good stat sheet race, but in this case, we actually have a lot more to offer. I've ridden the Africa Twin off-road at a race park, right? So it's
sweet.
There's some experience to throw at it. So
sure.
I guess to start, I don't remember all the conversations we had about the Tenere, but why don't you tell the whole universe right now how much you love or hate the Tenere 700?
What a piece of junk that thing was. I couldn't wait to get my 1090 back. Man, I'll be honest. So I had not ridden a T7. When the T7 was first announced, just like everybody, they had all those crazy shots of it as a prototype. And I'm like, oh my God, this bike looks phenomenal. It didn't really change that much in looks and appearance from the point in time that it was a prototype to production. Unlike, which we'll talk about, the Africa Twin, which when it was a prototype, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then it came out and I was like, meh, whatever. The T7, I finally got a chance to ride one for the first time when I came up to Ohio and rode with you, and we swapped bikes for a little while. And in talking to my brother, who had considered one when he bought his 890 Adventure, felt like it was underpowered, and some people complain about it being top heavy and doesn't have very many features. I didn't find any of those. Well, okay, it's not rich in features. I find that endearing personally. You and I both do, I know,
right.
As do many other people. Yeah. And I didn't find it all that top heavy. I'm used to my 1090, so apples to apples kind of a little bit here, right? But I found that it had plenty of grunt. I found that it cruised comfortably on the interstate for the short. I think we ran like 3 exits worth of interstate, right? Getting to that crappy hot town with a shitty gas station. But, it to me, it really did everything very well wherever we went. I didn't have any real complaints about it, other than there was something with the ergonomics that I can't remember what it was. I think the rear brake or the foot pegs or something like that wasn't cooperating with me. But I'm 6'3". I have a 34-inch inseam. You know what I mean? So
it's positioned for a guy like me that's 5'10", right? So
absolutely, a Japanese motorcycle not meant for a 6'3", Viking or whatever. I mean.
It is funny because I like the bend in the knee on that bike, but it's still true that I do have to scoot back on the passenger seat. The pegs are kind of close to the seat. I've seen guys on forums talk about lowering pegs and taller seats and all that other stuff. So there's something to that rider triangle.
Well, you're going to have to customize the rider triangle, as you said, no matter what bike you're on. If you're too short for it or you're too tall for it. I've never met an adventure bike yet that I haven't had to do something. Even the 1090, I put fastway pegs on because they lower it a little bit, just relaxes my aging knees, you know what I mean? Yep. So it's a thing. But to me, it really did everything really well. I really feel like the T7 is in a position it's like the next world traveler bike. It's like the modern day KLR or R100 GS or even 1100 GS, something to that effect. It's reliable. It's going to keep you happy while you're riding it. It's not going to, leave you stranded on the side of the road, necessarily. It's perfectly happy in several different, trim packages, whether you want to gear it for more off-road riding or more street riding. I was impressed. Like, it would be a contender if I was shopping for a middleweight bike, you know.
I also want to put a caveat out there. Your highway experience was on a front sprocket missing one tooth. Not missing, down one tooth. So the highway is actually better with stock gearing. I put a front sprocket on with one less tooth on it.
I was going to ask you if it was geared differently. I forgot. That's a great point. Yeah, and that's a big variable in these bikes that we've ridden. Sometimes it's even hard. Like, we'll talk about the Aprilia Touareg, and I rode it with stock gearing. I want to ride it with better geared, setup on it. So that has a lot to do with it. But to me, it was a fun motorcycle, man. Like, I don't think you made a bad choice at all in that. People complain about the suspension. I don't think dude, the suspension was fine. Like, it was great. I didn't have any problems with that suspension. It did everything that I asked of it to do. We went over one trail that had like kind of a jump down, like a little, it wasn't big. It was like a 1 or maybe 2 foot drop down. I didn't bottom it. I mean, I'm 200 pounds. It was fine. So, yeah, I liked it.
It's interesting to hear you say that, too, because it was on pretty low preload.
Yeah, you like a soft suspension, right?
Very much so.
Yep.
Yes.
And mine is stiff. My 1090 is stiff. I'm actually thinking about softening it up, to be honest with you.
It's funny how that works, right? Like, at first you're like, oh, I'm just going to attack all this stuff, and then you hit expansion joints on the highway on the regular, and you're like, yeah, this sucks. I don't want that at all.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Absolutely agree with you on that. So, yeah, to me, the T7 is a great, do-it-all motorcycle. The price point is right. I mean, what's the retail? It's like, what is it, $10,000 or $11,000?
For the listeners' benefit, I nerded out big time and created a Excel spreadsheet that has all of these statistics in it, so that I could see all of it at one time, right? Like horsepower, weight, and all this other stuff. So I actually picked some years. This is kind of a used bike discussion, because if we're talking about 1090. They don't make those anymore, right?
Right.
And I'm familiar with bikes that are now a generation old, right? My Tenere is the last of the generation. There's a new version out. So 10.5 is the answer to your question, but now it's 10.7, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
If you want to get a Tenere. So
under 11 grand.
Yeah, and it's the same thing for a lot of these other bikes we'll talk today. I went ahead and wrote some pricing down that's relevant to the model or year that I actually rode.
Yep.
And kind of wanted to debate it on that merit. Whereas, if you're going to buy the newest one with the newest features, that may change.
Yeah. How have you been liking the T7? How many miles are on it now?
It's 11,000. So
11,000 miles already?
Yeah.
And you've had it for, what, 2 years?
It was a year in May or June, first weekend of June or something
nice, dude.
Like that. Yeah, it was just short of
man.
10.
Not having a kid just gives you some riding time,
Well, I mean, it's funny because I think I did 4 trips to the gorge last month.
Yeah.
It was weird. Like, as soon as I finished riding the Himalayan, then it was like back to the gorge, and I kept riding the Tenere like every day.
Red River Scramble prep.
And that's exactly it. This is all rally prep. And so, I did like 3 500-mile days, every weekend for a minute there. So it adds up very quickly.
And as I found out, anytime you're going to go riding somewhere, you got to do 100 miles of trash to get to, not trash, but I mean, I like the cornfields and all that, but only because I never ride all that junk, dude. If you're going to go ride into the good stuff, you got to do 100 miles to the good stuff, right?
And it's funny, because on one of these recon rides 2 weekends ago, because we were headed down toward like Estree, I mean, we actually went all the way to Berea, Kentucky. I actually took the highway all the way there and took the highway home, and I never do that.
Yeah. So sometimes you just got to make the time happen, though.
And that was the thing, right? Is I kind of was leaning toward the Tenere from the Scrambler specifically for wind protection, and that's not normally my thing, but it paid the bills in this case. That it was like, I need to make up this time, and I don't want to do this. However, it is way easier to do 80 miles an hour on the highway through Kentucky on the Tenere than it is on the Scrambler. For as much as I love the Scrambler, it just having a fairing, riding in the rain is probably the biggest thing to me. Like when you ride a naked bike all the time, and then you get an adventure bike with a fairing on the front, you're like, this isn't quite as bad. I'm not as soaked, especially if I'm still moving most of the time. It's not bad. So.
Yeah, it does a lot. And I'm a little bit, I don't love the interstate, but I'm a little bit different in that I'll jump on the interstate and put my music on and just zone out for a couple hours if I need to. And I don't want to do it all day or anything, but I don't necessarily mind it. It's kind of zone out time for me. So, but I totally get what you're saying. It's not, sometimes you just got to make the miles happen to get to the good stuff. When I got back from Ohio, I went riding again in North Georgia. It took me about 20 minutes to get to the good stuff. And honestly, I live on a dirt road, so like I can leave my house and immediately I'm on dirt.
Right.
But I was like, oh man, I'm never taking this for granted again after visiting Drew in Dayton, Ohio,
It's well, I mean, to your point, right? Like, I mean, we're diverging a little bit from conversation, but I think it falls
a shock for us.
Yeah, but it also falls within the realm of why I like adventure riding, because I really do love the pavement every bit as much as I love off-road, and I find that that's particularly rare. And I'm assuming that just is because I don't have a truck trailer. I only have my bikes, and I have 100 miles-ish, definitely 60 miles between me and something fun. That's just the way it is. So it's like you have to adapt to the conditions, and that's just what I've had to do. So I don't know.
That's the joy of adventure riding, man. Get on that bike and just start riding.
Yeah, there's so much twisty pavement between me and everything else for the most part, with the exception of Washington Courthouse and all these other places in between Dayton and Columbus. For anybody who lives here knows, but yeah, the complaints I think I have about the Tenere are the shock. Like you said, the suspension's good, especially like after last weekend. Last weekend I was literally riding the dual sport routes for the scramble on my Tenere. Because just the conditions lined up where it's the only bike I had to do it with at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a little nerve-wracking at first, because I don't know where I'm going, but I do know it's not places I'm sending most adventure bikes.
Yeah.
But the bike does it, and I enjoyed it, and it did it better than I expected it to do. It's chatter on the shock. I need to spend some more time playing with more of the suspension settings, but I did a lot of that when I first got it for the most part. I do think the forks are marginally better than the shock, and from what I've talked to other guys that have T7s and who are legit suspension tuners, some of them have talked about cartridges or changing some of the oil and some of the other stuff, and they've managed to make the front forks compliant to more difficult off-road riding. But it does seem that I think other people as well kind of feel like the shock, unfortunately, is just kind of limited on what you can actually do. Maybe I'm talking out my butt right now, but yeah, I'm actually probably more likely to buy a shock than I am forks at the moment. Okay, so it's kind of funny how that worked out.
Yeah, that's good information though.
Yeah, and other than that, and this is to me, this is off the spectrum for adventure riders. The 4-inch rear rim to me is problematic. I would like to run 140 tires that are marginally cheaper to do off-road. We've got, you got more options to get into slightly not DOT tires.
Is it a 150 now? Sorry.
No, I'm glad you asked that question. It's 150 70/18 is stock, which anybody who's pricing adventure tires, it's incredibly expensive to get that size right now, especially because tubeless has become so common, and so a lot of them are only offered in tubeless. Yeah, and it's crazy expensive. And it's a 4-inch rim, not a 425, the way it's on the KTM. And to me, it seems like I struggle to find good handling adventure tires in the right size. I've put 150s on that I didn't like. I've put 140s on, and they come with their own level of compromise. So I'm curious if I had let's call it a 3.5, a 2.5, or a 3.5-inch rear rim, how that's going to affect the road manners. So, but like I said, this is way out in left field. Most adventure riders are just going to buy the size and like it. And
my buddy Chase put a 140 Moto Z Adventure on the back of his bike, which is the rear tire I really like. Yeah, it was $100+ cheaper than the 150 I have to buy for my KTM, which is ludicrous. And he doesn't have any complaints about it. But you may be a little bit more sensitive to that. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm hyper price sensitive anyway. I mean, we've already talked about in the show, like, because of where I live, like, incomes are just simply not as high, and tires cost the same, whether you live in Chicago, LA, or Dayton, Ohio. It's just the way it is.
They should give you a Dayton, Ohio discount. They're like, I'm really sorry. Here's your discount.
I mean, I have nothing on people that live in Mississippi, Arkansas, West Virginia. However,
we are calling out everybody today. Dang.
It's a real thing. Like, there was a time where I was seriously thinking about moving, and it's like, when you live someplace where the cost of living has been this cheap, you have to move to, very rural parts of the country to even remotely compete with that. And that's what MSRP of bikes and tires is the same. So
Yeah.
I think it's something that the market misses. And anytime you talk to people on the internet, I'm ridiculous, right? Like, that bike's cheap. I'm like, yeah, you live in LA. 100% it's cheap.
That's hilarious. That's a good point, man. I never really considered that before, but yeah, it's a thing for sure. Something to think about.
On the flip side, the 1090 was interesting, having ridden the 990 in the past. I kind of wish we could still kind of have that conversation, and I really wish I had a stat sheet on me to understand the differences between the two, so you might know some of them. Mm-hmm. To me, the 1090 actually felt bigger than the 990 did. But I'm not sure if how true that is, but it felt that way.
It feels way bigger. Yeah, the 1090 I love, like just a lot. Most people know this already, but just to put this in perspective, I've got about 95,000 miles on 2 different 950 adventures, and now I'm at about 28,000 miles on my 1090 adventure. So just to kind of give you some history there.
Yeah.
Dude, the 950 adventure to this day and the 990 after it, they to me they're still the best, most grin-inducing motorcycle, do-it-all motorcycle ever made. I love the 950. I don't love carbs anymore because I don't get to ride as much as I used to. So I've considered selling my 1090 and looking for like a 990 Baja edition or something. But haven't gotten there, but I've considered it. So to your point, the 1090 does feel a lot bigger, and in my opinion, it's because of two things. It's seat height, which my bike is incredibly tall, as you well know. And by the way, I rock my seat in the low position. So when you rode it, that was a low setting, dude. Imagine it in a tall setting.
35.5 inches unladen, according to the internet. It's tall.
It's tall. Now, that said, side note, the 1090 comes with a one-piece seat as stock, not adjustable. I have 1190 seats on my bike.
Oh, okay.
They fit, and they are adjustable. They're a two-piece seat. So for whatever that's worth. Yeah. But still, it's tall. And then the gas tank, man, that's 5.5 or whatever gallons of gas all the way at the top. It's not like the 950, which held the same amount of fuel, but it slung it low. And they managed to sling it low and still keep the profile narrow. Not like the 890 where they're just these giant bulbous, saggy boobs sticking off to the side of the motorcycle, dude. It's and just like that, we got an explicit rating on it.
For the record, a coworker brought that up to me today. We can talk about that. Yeah,
right,
he said
cool.
He's got a family Spotify account, and me making all of them explicit means that. And I was like, how did I not mark that one explicit? Because I'm.
Man, if Mark is on your show, just go ahead and mark it. I try, dude. I've been working on it, to be honest with you, but I know I've let 2 go already this episode, and I'm trying not to. So I apologize to anybody who's just a goody out there.
The tank information is interesting because obviously the only 990 I've ridden had the Safari tank, which takes that.
That's a different.
Right?
Yeah,
but no, you're right, because I do remember seeing the stock tanks in my buddy Jeff's garage. That they are like that split tank. It works the same way, and you can really see the Dakar lineage in that realm. I didn't realize they changed it that much for the 1190, 1090. So
yeah, for sure. I'm looking at my 1090 right now, and the tank just doesn't come down as low as the 950. And I used to think the 950 tanks were a pain in the butt to take off and do any work on. Dude, they're nothing compared to this 1090. I hate taking the take off this 1090, but that's why I think you feel that bike, the 1090, 1190 is bigger. I think because it is. I guess I'd have to look at some 950 specs, but after spending all the time I have on both bikes, I would bring my 950 into some gnarly places that it really had no business going. I'm much more selective on where I bring the 1090. I'm much more selective on it. I mean, sometimes I look back on pictures where I was on the 950 and I'm like, what in the world is wrong with me? Why would I do that? But yeah, the 1090, I'm not willing to do it, Does that make sense? It's really top heavy. That's the biggest problem.
And that's the thing, right? As a guy who went from a scrambler that, shaved it down to 475 pounds at race weight, right? From 500, right? And then going to a T7 that's, what did I say, 470-ish? I think I need to look it up, but I'm talking. So anyway, to go to the 10 or 8, well, 452 is according. Yeah, so 452, and then get on 530 pounds of KTM 1090, and it's tall. And the funny thing about KTM is it's amazing to me that the 990, 1090, and 890 are all of the same flavor. That if you don't push the bike hard, it's kind of crabby with you. Like it punishes you. It doesn't like
to putt.
Yeah, it does not like that. The suspension's usually a little stiff, and obviously you can change all of that. But in stock form, for the most part, it does seem like the bikes want to be flogged. Like that is their general character. KTM
you nailed it, dude.
Yeah,
you nailed it.
There's nothing wrong with that, but I think the buyers should understand that, right? If you want to putt around and take it easy, you're going to end up doing some massaging of the bike to get all the settings the way that you want it to be to get there. It's not that it can't do it, but it's going to be more work.
Well, I mean, look, I know the focus is the 1090, but to go back to the 950, that bike was like 90% Dakar race bike. Yeah. I mean, they didn't change all that much from that bike, from the Dakar bikes that Mione and guys were racing those things. So straight up, that's what it was. I mean, it's definitely not a bike. The LC8 is just not a putting around type of bike. All the KTMs I've ever owned, it's just not what that bike is for.
The only exception to that, like I agree with you when it comes to the chassis and the suspension. What's interesting, well, it works both ways, right? It's really easy on the throttle response. But if you're in a comfortable mode and you want to get into a sporty mode, you need to downshift and get up into the rev range or whatnot, because it will get cranky with you for being in too high of a gear at low speed unless you're just kind of idling along. So the throttle response is interesting because it won't get you into a lot of trouble. But once you cross $6,000, it is party on. Like it is wild. Like. And it reminds me, obviously it's more so than the Africa Twin, but both of them have enough juice that when you really wick that throttle, like that bike goes. And it will get away from you very easily.
Well, and when I let you ride it, I kept it in sport mode. So in sport mode, that bike, the 1090, is pushing 125 horses, and it's got like 80 foot-pounds of torque or whatever it is. I mean, it's a lot of torque. And it's a lot of horsepower, and I almost never put it in off-road mode or any other mode, which limits it to like 100 horsepower, which is still stupid in the dirt. I mean, I know, but it's just so much fun to me to like be able to be in the dirt and hit a little bitty rock in the middle of a graded forest road and just chop that throttle and bounce off that thing. I mean, I just giggle like a schoolgirl when that kind of thing happens. And anytime I ride someone else's bike, I just want to get back. I love them all, man. But I when I get back on the KTM, I just feel at home. And maybe it's because I've been on them so long. But, it's my only complaint with the 1090 is how dang heavy it is. That bike is so top heavy. I can even deal with the height, any of that jazz, fine, no problem. But it's just how top heavy it is.
It is interesting because I think everybody has a taste. And there's silly nuances like... I've been riding the Scrambler to work after riding the Tenere a lot on the weekends, and so the rear shock's a little stiff, and the throttle response is like super snatchy. And it's funny that I actually kind of like that, but there's every now and then that's like, I've been pampered a little bit with the T7. Yeah, and so the bikes, the Himalayan 1090, all of those bikes, they're the inverse of that, where the initial throttle response is super buttery smooth. And sometimes I'm just like, man, I really like the hard kick in the pants from certain bikes. Harleys are that way usually, that it's like there's not a lot of power, but there's a lot of like right off idle. So it is funny that like there's no metric for any of this and what's good and what's bad, but everybody kind of has a preference. And lots of people have complained forever. The Bonneville was always, this thing's snatchy, I gotta spend all this money to fix it. And I'm like, I guess I was just beating his submission because I'm cheap.
Well, that's how the 07, 08 990s were. The first few years of fuel injection after KTM went from the 950 to 990, I don't even think I'd own an 07 or an 08 because the throttle response is just super snatchy. My brother had one. And I remember riding it down my dirt road that I live on, and I scared the crap out of myself because I just chopped at it like I would have on my 950, and I was like, "Oh, okay, all right, there it is. That's what's up." So, but to me, the 1090 still does. it's almost like the last of the KTMs that, knock on wood, don't really have many of the modern KTM problems. I mean, it's got like, you know, an LCD, you know, dash still, and it's got like analog, you know, tack and stuff like that. There's no TFT or anything like that. It's got some rider modes. You can go between ABS and traction control, but there's not like lean angle sensor or anything. It's pretty bare bones for a modern bike.
It's interesting because that 1090 display is actually more archaic than the Tiger 800 is. I think it was easier to find, you know, the traction control ABS settings in the Tiger 800 display than I found it in the 1090.
Ooh, I don't know about all that, but I'm
enough.
with you. Okay,
that's what I'm saying. Like, fair enough, right? Because it was a new bike to me, right? But it is interesting that when you look at it, it's kind of like, no, this is marginally more old school than even the old Tiger 800 was. So it's interesting how that's played.
Yeah, it is. The Tiger 800, I owned one of those too for about 14,000 miles, and I had to get that to do anything, you had to go through a lot of screens to get to, like, if I wanted to shut the ABS off, like, it was a full-on production. I mean, this bike, I can do it real easy. I know where the screens are. So sometimes it's easier to go backwards in the menu than to go forwards in the menu. I go backwards too. There's my settings for my ABS and my traction control, and, you know, Bob's your uncle. So I think it's just from what you're used to. I can do it almost sight unseen now. So you get used to it.
No, that makes sense. Speaking of what you just said, you've ridden the Tiger 900, right?
I have.
Do you want to transition and tell us about your experience with the Tiger 900?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, so the Tiger 900. Now, I did not ride the Rally Pro, just so we all know. I don't know which one I rode, but it was not the Rally Pro. It wasn't like the upper echelon one.
Was it spoked wheels or mag wheels?
No, it had mag wheels on it.
Okay.
So it was not the Rally Pro. I will say that I had been riding my 1090 for a couple years, and one of my friends works at Triumph, and we went and got actually to ride a bunch of different Triumphs and for most of the day. It was a good time. We rode a bunch of different bikes. But that Tiger, when we got to right before the mountains, my buddy, he was on the Tiger. He gives me the keys because I was on a Rocket 3, and he knew we were getting into the good stuff, and he knew I wanted to ride that bike, and he goes, "Take this bike." All right, cool, dude. Me and another guy who was, I forget what he was on, a sport bike or a Tiger 12 or something. Dude, we were so far ahead of the pack, we had to stop and pull over and wait for everybody to catch up. I thought we did something wrong.
Yeah.
That Tiger 900 engine, in particular, the 24 Plus, when they made some big changes to that Tiger engine, but even the 23s and earlier, dude, I love that Tiger 900, and to have a Rally Pro, like, it doesn't make any sense when you look at the specs. It's one of the only bikes at the time that I was like, I could totally trade my 1090 for a Tiger Rally Pro. I loved it, man. The engine, and everybody that rides Triumphs, those triples, they're always talking about the engines. I've had many Triumphs, almost as many as I've had KTMs, but it's just it's truly a gem. And somehow they've made the 24 Plus, it almost feels like a V-twin when you want it to feel like a V-twin, and it feels like a triple when you want it to feel like a triple. And I don't think that's going to make sense unless you've ridden both of those engines. But man, it feels like a premium bike. That Rally Pro 900 should be Triumph's marquee bike. Like, it should be like what they focus all their energy and effort into. It should be their flagship model, not the 1200. 1200 riders don't come after me, but that's my opinion of it.
Yeah, I think Triumph has been trying to beat BMW at that 1200 game for a long time, and I mean, you can never admit defeat. Like, there's always that opportunity, but I feel like it has a lot more to do with who the primary customer is for a $30,000 adventure bike. And that's, I mean, frankly, a topic for a different episode.
Well, you know, and that's part of the problem with the Tiger 900 Rally Pro, dude. That bike is $17,500. I mean, seriously, you're getting close to GS money, and I'm sorry, but that's how people start to look at these bikes when you start getting into $17,000, $18,000. It's like, well, what's another $1,000 or $2,000 to get a BMW?
Hell, I didn't even look at that. Unless I made a mistake, I've got $14,000 for the F900 GS. Now, I didn't put the GSA on here. I put the GS.
Okay, so I'm talking about the 1200 GS, I guess. But still, my point remains the same. The 900 GS we'll talk about. I've not ridden that, but
Right.
I've sat on one plenty because I go to our local shop and I sit on it every time I get because I'm totally infatuated with that motorcycle.
I didn't even think about this. The Tiger 900 Rally Pro was more expensive than the Ducati Desert X.
Yeah, the Rally Pro is expensive, dude.
I knew it was 17 plus, but like I had never sat down and looked at it. Now, Ducati, I don't think plays quite the same game that BMW does, but they have two different trim levels. And obviously one's much more, well, it's not a lot, but it's several $100s more than the base. That's 17 grand. But no, yeah, the Rally Pro is rough to me because there's no 900 Rally anymore.
Yeah.
So you go from roadie to rally, and that's it. Like that. So Rally Pro is the way that it goes. I mean, I agree with your assessment on the engine completely. I think the 800, and you know better than anyone, got a bad rep for not being so great off road. But I do think that T-plane, whatever crankshaft,
that firing order,
I think all of that stuff really did change the character of it.
Absolutely, it did.
And I do think that Triumph really does a hell of a job to put together a premium adventure bike. Like all the features and creature comforts and all of the stuff is highly refined, and it's very good.
Yep.
It's just disappointing that when there's a Transalp and a Tenere 700 for one price, and then you can buy a KLR as well, and now you've bought a Tiger 900 Rally Pro, that there's nothing in between that's a little more off-roady, and that's disappointing.
A big problem with that is that, and we've talked about this before, but you get to a Tiger 900 Rally Pro, and it's loaded. Right. You've got heated seats, you've got heated grips, you've got the adjustable windscreen, you've got all the electronic jazz. Dude, make me a 900 Rally Pro. I've never once in my life wished for a heated seat ever. I want an air-conditioned seat. Make me a friggin' air-conditioned seat and we're in business, bro. You know?
You're not wrong. That's really funny.
That's for a 1200. Put that kind of jazz on like a touring bike, dude. You're going to make me the most off-road capable motorcycle ever, and then you're going to fill it full of thousands of dollars of electronic crap that's going to leave me stranded in the woods. I'm not interested in all that. So if they could drop some of that stuff off, give me a premium motorcycle with premium suspension and minimal, rider aids, let's call them, dude, they would really have something, man. And when you buy a Triumph, you're buying into history. Yeah. You're buying into a brand. You're buying into a lifestyle. It's very similar to the way that Harley Davidson's positioned themselves in terms of this is an iconic brand. Indian, even KTM up until recent history, BMW. I mean, you're buying into that when you buy a Triumph. And I've owned many Triumphs, and that is the Triumph customer. Yeah. So
I do think that Triumph is trying to position themselves toward premium, and there's a good argument that they're delivering on that, to your point, right? And the 800's now 900 engine has a very long lineage, the same way the Twin does in my bike. I mean, they made the Triumph Twin that's in my bike for 15 years.
Yeah.
What was it? I forget what year they switched to the 900. Let's call it 2019, 2020, if I remember correctly. I should look that up. I'm sorry. Send hate mail to motoadvr@gmail.com. But yeah, I mean, they started making that engine in like 2011, right? So that whole architecture has got a lot of lineage to it. So to your point about reliability, right? They have nailed that part of it, in my opinion, that Triumph bikes are very reliable. The catch has just been that, now if you want their off-road adventure bike, it's quite expensive. I actually think Triumph could pull off a spoke wheel option for the Tiger 850. I think there's a strategy there, because I think I'm the customer for that. But that's a dream bike podcast. So
yeah, well, Triumph gets a little convoluted in what they offer in the Tiger range, I think, and I can't even keep up with it anymore, to be honest with you. But I think Triumph is doing a lot of good things. I think they're missing the boat on a lot of things. I've got insider information to some of that, so I'm like, I don't know, man. Sometimes they're here and sometimes they're not. But overall, I really like the brand. I really like that Tiger 900 Rally Pro. I could definitely ride one of those things. I just don't want to pay $17,500 for one. It's not worth it to me.
Yeah, $17,400 for the most expensive bike I currently have on the list. And even if I would have included the KLR and the Moto Guzzi V85 TT, it still would be the most expensive middleweight on the list.
That's pretty crazy when you really think about it. Yeah. I mean, look, I bought my KTM as a leftover. I mean, I think I was like 11 or 12 grand as a leftover model for that 1090. So it's like, it's really hard, like going, okay, is there $7,000 or $6,000 more to that Tiger? There's not, you know.
Yeah, you would have to buy a brand new 25 Africa Twin Adventure Sports for $17,600 to outprice that. That's interesting. I don't have that on the spec sheet. I just put on a 2020 Africa Twin because that's about, it's not quite, I think I wrote a 16, but the premise, based on stats and price, I went back to that point.
So all that said, do you want to put your email address out there, and do you want to tag Dana in it now, or just wait for him to send you the email on his own?
I'm looking forward to. I'll probably get a text from him actually.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So we talked about the Tiger. You rode the Aprilia Touareg 660
Ooh, yes,
over the
did.
weekend, I think.
I rode it. What's today? Tuesday. I rode it 2 days ago, dude. I rode it Sunday.
All right, give me the Mark Sharon's Luddite Especial opinion.
Well, let me tell you something. My friend Scott, big thanks to him for letting me flog his bike for, quite a while. I didn't just do some little ride. I mean, we traded bikes for half the day, it seemed like.
Wow.
I really got to put it through its paces. A couple weeks ago, I sat on the new Aprilia 660 Rally, the Touareg Rally, up at the dealership. And when I sat on that bike, immediately I was like, oh my God, the ergonomics are spot on.
Wow.
This bike feels incredible. It's $1,300 more than the base model bike that I ended up riding Sunday, which for that bump up, you get stronger wheels that are not tubeless. You get an SC Concepts exhaust, which probably makes up that $1,300 cost right then and there. You get a beefier skid plate, whether it's up to the task or not to be determined, but you do get a beefier skid plate. You get a flat, dirt bike style seat and some other accoutrements, if you will.
Yeah.
But immediately I was drawn to that bike, and I started going, okay, if I make my 1090 a touring bike, I can make this 660, an off-road bike, and I'm like immediately wheeling and dealing in my head, right? Well, so Scott bought an Aprilia Touareg, a year or two ago, and we've always talked about swapping bikes and riding. I finally got to do that Sunday, and I really enjoyed that motorcycle.
That's good.
So, the one negative thing, he has not geared it. It is stock gearing, and I really think gearing would make a world of difference on that bike, but I personally would not be ready to pull the trigger on that bike until I rode one with a 45 tooth sprocket instead of the stock 42.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't do anything under 5,000 RPMs. And I found that incredibly difficult to deal with when we got into some gnarly terrain, trying to keep the revs up that high, getting into the thick stuff. So that was a little bit weird to me. But, dude, the chassis on that bike, the suspension was softer than I normally run. You would have liked his suspension settings. They're pretty soft.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, you could get into the turn, and when it had been raining up here, so we were into some mud, and then, like, on the insides of the turns, there's kind of like this sand that had settled in there. You could really sit down on the back of that seat and just plow that rear end into the ground, and it just tracked beautifully around those curves. It really did. And that's not even the Rally suspension, the upgraded suspension. That's something else you get with the Rally. So it has a lot of potential. I'm 6'3", like I said. The ergonomics were really, really good for me. The controls at the feet were too close for my size 14 kicks, but that's a pretty common problem for me. But I kept missing shifts and hitting the brake lever by accident. I also didn't care for the stock handlebars very much. They sweep back too far. But that's also pretty common for me to not like stock handlebars. So I loved the display. I loved how you get through the rider modes. I loved the windscreen on the street. No buffeting with my head. I'm wearing an Arai XD4. No head shake or anything like that. It would definitely be a contender. I mean, at whatever, 13 grand or whatever that bike costs. I can't remember exactly what the standard one cost.
I think I looked up at 23 if I remember correctly. And
12.3.
Yeah, so 2024 was 12.3. That's why I was doing the math. And I was like, if you're telling me a Rally version is under 15 grand.
Oh, that's the one I'm buying.
You're getting a bike that is as competitive, if not more so, than a KTM 890 is for less money.
Oh, yeah.
Now, like I said, there's a lot of subjective stuff here, right? Like, we can talk camshafts versus Aprilia dealer network, right? Like which one of these?
Dealer network is not an issue for me. I'll never understand people that complain about dealer network because, I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. I brought my bike to the dealership to do the valve adjustment just basically because I didn't feel like doing it. But I could have done it, and I should have done it, and I'll do it in the future. So I don't really use a dealership for anything, and I'm sorry, dealerships, but that to me is really not a thing. We do have a good Aprilia dealership here from what I've seen, so that's nice. But I don't know, man. For the money, like this bike versus the T7, like that needs to be a shootout for real because this bike really had. Like it felt premium. Everything on it felt quality. It felt skinnier than the T7 did. Where your knees are. I mean, it felt like riding a dirt bike. It felt really well balanced. The weight was lower than the T7 was. It certainly was lower than my 1090 was. But at the same time, I was kind of happy to get my 1090 back and get that grunt and get that torque back, and be able to just power my front wheel up in the air to get over obstacles, which I could not do on the Aprilia. But that's my bad technique probably more than anything. So
the Touareg by a whole 2 pounds is the lightest bike on my list today.
Ooh, really? What's the second one?
The Tenere, 452.
Okay. Gotcha.
450 pounds, the Touareg is technically lightest in class, unless you include the KLR, which is actually not that far away.
Yeah, right,
I'm pretty sure the base model is under 450, but
it's
all those other ones are
less cylinder.
Yeah, like I didn't put it on my list, so I may be talking out my ass here. But
did you ride a Touareg? Have you ridden
one?
Oh
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say you rode one before you bought your T7, right?
Absolutely.
Now, why did you choose T7 over Touareg?
I think there's no doubt that still price was a consideration. And then reliability / dealer network is an issue for me because the closest dealer, if I remember correctly, was Louisville because I think they dropped Aprilia here. I guess technically Columbus might. Iron
Ooh, was it Commonwealth? Are they an Aprilia dealer?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Ugh,
unfortunately,
that's a reason not to buy one.
Yeah, that was it. Was like, do I want to go to Louisville? And I don't remember if Iron Pony did, and I don't want to throw a bunch of dealerships under the bus. But ultimately, there were no dealerships.
I'll throw them under the bus.
Yeah, there were no dealerships that I really wanted to deal with. And I guess for dealers listening, maybe I don't know that you have Aprilia, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I didn't know that, and to me, it was like any bike that I'm going to spend money on, like new bike money on, I'm going to beat the tar out of it. So it's like I need to make sure that it can handle what's going to happen.
It was kind of an unknown at the time too, right? Because it's only a couple years old.
Yeah, it was. I think that they were arguably a year old when I rode it. Like this was way back when. A friend of mine bought it brand new. We went and rode the Southern High Adventure Loop. He rode my Scrambler. I rode the Touareg. And my impressions mirror yours for the most part. That it was like the moment that I was on it, and I had ridden the 790 at that point as well.
Okay.
And I was like, this chassis is the best chassis in class. Like
it's a great chassis.
The suspension ergonomics, the way it carries its weight, it is extremely confidence-inspiring off-road. I felt so good on it, and I arrived at the same place you did. When we got on the pavement, I loved the engine because it's easy to keep on the boil.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I had my WR back then, but my WR is the same way. Like you stay in the upper third of the rev range pretty much all the time if you're either having fun or you're in a hurry or things are getting difficult, right?
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't. I mean, it does putt around, but not if you want to get anything done, right?
Yeah.
And so I did feel the same way that you did. That the Touareg engine's a lot of fun, but you can kind of tell that it comes from a sport bike type heritage. I forget what its sister bike is, but they have a 660 street bike of at least one flavor, if not two.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, Aprilia's got that stuff figured out, right? Like they've got a couple different power plants, and they use them in different bikes, and that's the modern world we live in, right? That's totally the way the car industry works now.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can see that street heritage, right? Where to me, off road torque is king. You know, if I'm stat sheet racing the way that I did to prepare for this episode, like I'm actually deciding not to count horsepower as what matters because off-road Yeah, horsepower is great for on the highway, and obviously adventure listeners are going to appreciate that, but I don't think that it should score as well as torque because engine displacement and horsepower typically correlates to torque in some way or another. Like, mathematically, that's a fact, but also if you look at the stat sheet, you're like, yeah, the ones with the most horsepower also tend to have the most amount of torque, but to me, the way it delivers torque is more important, and I think that's the issue, is the 2R-egg. That torque doesn't come up until much later.
Well, I think I heard someone say one time, and I might be totally getting this wrong, but like horsepower is defined as how fast you hit the side of the house, and torque is how far you go through the house before you stop.
Well, that's what's funny to me is it's like, yeah, it's torque. What is it? Torque multiplied by revolutions per minute divided by 5,200 is horsepower. Like that's essentially how, horsepower is a mathematical formula based on torque and number of RPMs. You can make a ton of horsepower if you can make a ton of RPMs. Harleys redline at 6,500 RPMs. So yeah, they don't make a lot of horsepower, whereas, fire blades will rev to like, let's call it 14,000 RPMs. Yeah, they make a ton of horsepower because you can make a lot of RPMs. It's a mathematical thing, right? Yeah. But if you're going to pull a stump out of the ground, do you want to do it with a CBR or do you want to do it with a Harley?
Right,
duh. A big fat tractor is what I want to pull a stump out of the ground with.
Absolutely, man. The other thing that I was thinking about too, like the T7, the 890, which we'll get to, this Touareg, the clutch, it's all cable clutch. My 1090 is a hydro clutch.
Yeah.
And my clutch, you rode my bike, it's stiffer than any of these other bikes I'm riding with cable clutches. And I'm like, why in the hell this hydraulic clutch is aggravating. They leak, they fail, you have to change the slave out. I mean, it's terrible, dude. What's the worst that happens with a cable? It stretches, it snaps at some point in time, and you got to replace it. I mean, dude, your T7, the 890, and the Touareg, buttery smooth clutches, and that was a good thing because on the trails we were riding, I was between first and second gear on the Touareg. And I couldn't get happy at first or second. And on my KTM, I'd have been probably third gear most of the time without much clutch work. I was riding that clutch the whole time I was on that thing. So it's a weird thing to think about, but I think it's something that people shopping in this category should consider and pay attention to.
It matters, like everybody listening right now, like you want an adventure bike for a different reason, right? Like for me, it really is like, I need a bike that I feel pretty comfortable doing some relatively difficult trails by myself. Yeah. But I'm also going to ride 2 hours to get there, maybe 4 hours, depending on what it is, right? So it's like this is a very difficult weapon, to take there and be comfortable. But other people are like, yeah, I just want to go and camp, like I'm never going to get super wild, right? And to me, I think to your point, the Touareg has like a full tech suite on it, right? Like you've got cruise control and traction control and rider modes and all that other stuff. And again, it was what, 12.3, 12.5.
Yeah. And it's an Italian motorcycle.
Yes.
When I found out, I actually thought they were way more money than that. Yeah. When I found out what their price was, I was like, what? And when the dealership told me that the Rally was $1,300 more, I'm like, that's a no-brainer, dude. It's crazy. It is so much motorcycle for the money, in my opinion.
I didn't put displacement on my list, but I should have, because I actually think the Touareg is arguably the smallest engine in this class if you don't count the KLR, and it has more horsepower and torque than the Tenere does.
Yeah, so interesting.
It's fascinating how that. For the listeners' benefit, by the way, with the exception of one bike, if I remember correctly, which I actually think is the F900, I actually use Cycle World's dyno charts for each of these. When I consider them, all my numbers, maybe if I can, I'll put a link in the description if people want to download this PDF and kind of look at how I put that together. But ultimately, it was cool because I like to do that because you get real rear wheel horsepower stats when Cycle World puts it on the dyno and does that. Because everybody claims things, and actually I was impressed. Ducati and somebody else were actually extremely close. Like their published numbers, or what they claim their horsepower was really close to the dyno numbers, and there are other brands where it's brake horsepower, right? Which is at the crank, not what you're getting at the rear wheel, right?
I had a hard time finding the weight for the Desert X. they were claiming like 450, but
Yeah.
then like real world numbers were way more than that.
yeah.
So yeah, it's when you're looking at specs, finding a third party like Cycle World or something like that is the way to go.
It's really nice when several of these magazines, like, they put it on the scale, and in the the dirt bike world and other stuff, a lot of the YouTubers have gotten great at this. It's hard to data mine that information for a podcast. I got to go watch a bunch of YouTube videos. Like, I might as well just be doing YouTube, but it is what it is. But and honestly, I do think, like so many adventure bikes, I think the Touareg styling is something that it's an acquired taste for a lot of people. I love it. I've loved it since day one. I think it looks phenomenal. But I think other people are kind of like, it looks like some kind of alien robot or a droid out of Star Wars. Maybe that's why you and I like it.
I think all these bikes look that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's divisive. I get that. It's not for everybody. I think it's got a unique look to it. It sets it apart from other bikes in the class. And I don't know, man. I really like it. I could definitely see trying to finagle a 660 rally into my life at some point in time. The older I'm getting, the less I want to wrangle that 1090 through Pumpkin Hollow.
I've got news.
I can do it, but it's tough.
I got news on that, but we'll follow up on that later. Also, compression ratio 13.5 to 1, which is tied with the KTM 890 as the highest compression ratio. That's probably explains how it has more horsepower despite being down pretty considerably on displacement. For the listeners' benefit, the other thing is, like, if you're into that touring thing, like I said, the technology suite that's available on the Touareg, and it's tubeless spokes. I'm not into that at all, but I understand the industry is kind of leaning that way. So you're getting a lot of bike. I guess this is a good KTM 890 transition, because right now, if you can find a leftover KTM 890 Adventure R, you can get a smoking deal on it, because they're not selling very well at all.
You definitely can. Yeah, they're actually taking parts that they can't get, like, from the factory, and taking them off of bikes that are on dealers' floors.
Are you serious?
I've heard some things about that. Yeah, so if you can't get a whatever, and let's just say an oil pan or whatever, KTM's got it back ordered. I've heard stories about KTM dealerships working with other dealerships and saying, we'll just take it off this bike, get it to the customer as a warranty, and then we'll warranty this bike that's been sitting on our showroom floor. So it's a crazy times for KTM continue, man.
That's the right thing to do always. It's just KTM has the blessing / curse that they currently have to be able to do that. But seriously,
Yamaha's not without problems either. I saw a guy that we both know that's been waiting on a headlight assembly for like a year or something like that. So it's not unique to KTM, but it's more common with KTM for sure.
No, that's 100% the case. What I was going to throw out to you is, when I was thinking about buying the T7, we were already in this state that lots of 23s were left over, and there were some pretty significant markdowns available. So I was looking at I was looking at price plus dealer incentives that were taking me under 13 grand to get a KTM 890. And so that's why I said, like, technically the Touareg's still cheaper, but right now you might be able to get an 890 for under 13 plus tax, dealer fees, setup, all the stuff that if you buy a bike. But
there's 24s still sitting out there. Actually, several of these motorcycles, by the way.
Yeah, that's another reason why I wanted to do this episode, right? Like, if you're thinking about a middleweight bike, like right now, if you want to buy a new bike, I wouldn't say this is the best time ever to buy a new bike.
It's a pretty good time, though.
It's getting pretty juicy right now. So it may get juicier, but the manufacturers they're going to do everything they can to cut production to prevent the bottom from falling out.
Yeah, you get interest rates as another factor into that, right? But as far as the price of the actual motorcycle, there's some deals to be had out there if you're smart, patient, and willing to walk away.
Yep, absolutely. So, who's when, whatever. Tell me your 890 experience.
I've ridden a couple 890s. I've ridden my brother's 890 Adventure R. I've ridden, my friend Andrew has an 890 Adventure R Rally, which has, I don't have all the differences in front of me, but off the top of my head, for sure it's up. I think. Yeah, it's a much beefier suspension. which, to be honest, man, my brother's standard 890R, the suspension on it's pretty dang good.
It is.
So, I mean, and I rented an 890 in Colorado a couple years ago, and it was just the standard Adventure R. So I've ridden 3 different Adventures, 890s, and I can say, like, the one I rented in Colorado, dude, I have a problem setting my suspension up to get over, like, you know, when you're going, like, over, like, those little washboards in a dirt road.
Right.
Man, that suspension just soaked it up, man. I was like, dang, why can't I get my 890 to do that? I feel it in my 890. My whole bike shakes apart. I feel like it's the Millennium Falcon getting across that stuff. Man, the suspension on the 890, and then you
baby hold together.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Thank you. And the with the Rally, it's even better. I mean, that suspension, and I'm not a suspension guru by any stretch of the imagination. It's freaking bonkers, dude. I mean, everybody wants to talk about the 890 being a 950 or a 990 successor. It's like a 640 Adventure successor, in my opinion. It has none of the vibrations. It feels every bit as much of a dirt bike as a 640 Adventure did. It's got gobs of power where you need it. You can loft the front air when you need to. It's a phenomenal motorcycle. It's just a damn shame about all the questions of reliability that surround that motorcycle, and whether they're made up or they're BS. And it's whether you bought a bike made Monday through Thursday or you bought a bike made on Friday afternoon when everyone was punching out for the day. There's a lot of variables in there that cross my mind when I'm dropping that kind of money. On paper, I should be on that motorcycle, though.
I believe if you have a good relationship with a KTM dealer, like you have a good, honest relationship with whoever the manager is or somebody that works there or a friend in the service department or whatever else it is, I think your bike's going to be taken care of if you have a problem with cams. The catch is, and that's what you're talking about, dealer network. You and I are the same. I'm not usually as worried about it, you know, despite obviously the comments we made about Aprilia, because I think it's its own animal. But I was very close. I think probably price and a little bit of my experience watching Andy and Seth race the T7 versus the 890. Like, I got to watch them race, you know, and all that stuff. I think that shifted my view some. But I was not super concerned about getting the bike fixed. But for anybody who, you know, takes their bike to the dealer to get serviced and all that other stuff, and they don't necessarily have a good relationship, I can definitely understand having some pause, like, hey, I just don't want to fuss with the cam situation. But I'm in agreement with you. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you know, I mean, luckily, you know, I'm friends with our KTM shop here at Woolies. He's actually probably going to come to Red River Scramble and stay with us and all that stuff. So, and he takes care of everybody, you know, they got a good reputation. So we're lucky to have that good dealership. And you're right. When there's a problem, you do want a dealership. So I kind of revoked my previous statement about that in terms of that. But, you know, it's, I think the cam thing is blown out of proportion. I really do, but it does. If I said it didn't cross my mind, I'd be lying. You know.
Well, and if you're the kind of person who rides the crap out of a bike and keeps them, I think it's an okay choice, because if you ride the crap out of it, you're going to know within the warranty period whether or not you have a cam issue. But if you don't put a lot of miles on bikes, and you don't have a good relationship with a dealer, when you go to sell your bike to anybody but another dealer, and even if you sell it to another dealer, you may lose your butt on an 890. So if you're a bike flipper, I could see people having issues with that.
My dealer, go ahead. So, no, you go ahead. You go ahead, sir. You do it.
This is the internet podcast struggle, kids. I'm really sorry about that. Normally facial expressions work, but apparently us jokers have some strong opinions today. I just wanted to mirror your opinion about suspension. Like, I really do like power. The suspension, again, on the 890 is a little stiff compared to others. So you have to set it up and understand how to weight it the right way to get it to go where you want it to go without spinning the rear wheel, because it does have a lot of power. Traction control and all that stuff is very good on that bike. I love, weight distribution, but it does feel heavier, both literally on the scale and when you're on it, than the Tenere does.
Ooh, really? I did not find that to be the case.
It's 20 pounds heavier on paper.
Yeah.
And I personally do find that the bike feels heavier, but it's within reason, right? We talked about with the Himalayan podcast a few days ago. It's a similar situation where the 890 doesn't feel, well, the 890 feels heavier until the Tenere really starts to tip. And at that point, it's 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so I do like the way that the 890 has the weight really low with the tank. And it's the same story. If you're going to do really dumb stuff in the woods, that is a lot of tank right in front of your feet that is going to catch hard objects like, Appalachian rocks and logs hidden in the grass.
Appalachian.
Damn, you got me again.
I'm never letting that go.
No, you should take that one to the grave, man. That's to me, that's the liability, right? Same thing. If you're riding out west, you're riding an open, you're constantly doing, Forest Service roads and what I would consider to be normal Jeep adventure roads. None of that will ever be a problem. It's only the most extreme people riding on the East Coast that are going to find that tank as a liability. We actually raced with a guy who had a aluminum tank fabricated so that he could do that. Yeah, and if you buy a KTM 890 SMT tank, it's a smaller one that doesn't have the lower extensions.
Yeah.
You can actually do a direct swap. So if you're if you're keen on KTM 890 and you want to have a tank option for when you want to get super wild, you can actually buy that tank.
Gotcha. I forgot about that. Totally forgot about that.
I don't know anyone who has experienced it personally, but the KTM 890 has had some issues with their immobilizer key fob because
That's nothing new. If you buy KTM, you just get used to that junk, dude.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about it. I admit that did spook me as well. That it was like, look, I'm by myself a lot. And I'm pretty techie, but technology, when I need it to do what it's supposed to do, and it doesn't, tends to make me very upset. So I was not about to get stranded in the holler, not knowing how to fix that, and having no access to the internet to figure it out. Yeah, I didn't want to do that.
There's all kinds of weird crap. Like my 1090 has an orange key. You basically put that in a lockbox and never touch it. Like it's a program. It programs something. I don't even know what it does, dude. I just know if you use it, you're foobarred. You know, it's so there's little things like that. But I mean, dude, what's the service interval on your T7?
That's hilarious. But I never thought about it as a guy who does a lot of wrenching and it puts a premium on that. It's 4,000 miles between oil changes.
Yeah. Yeah, and people want to say KTMs are high maintenance. What's the service interval on an 890 Adventure R?
9,300 miles.
90. It's more. It's
double.
More than double
Yeah.
what that Japanese trash you're riding is. I mean, how are you going to tell me that KTM? Dude, the service interval you told me today, I didn't even know because I need to change my oil when my clutch feels like crap, and that's about every 3,000 to 4,000 miles for me. It's 9,300 miles for my 1090. Yeah. I had no idea that it was that high. When you asked me what my service interval is, I thought it was like 6,000 miles. You're like, it's actually 9,300. You guys can no longer tell me that your T7s are maintenance-free beasts and the KTMs, oh man, they're just so maintenance heavy. It's the maintenance, maintenance. Screw you guys.
It's totally not true in the adventure space at all.
False.
And while we're here on air, I'm sure I can't find it, but I'm pretty confident. Oh, I did find it. Here's the caveat. If memory serves correctly, you're supposed to do valves at 18,000 miles on the 890.
On my 1090.
Correct.
So probably that too, yep.
So valves are 26,000 miles on my Tenere. So that's the interesting piece, and it's complex, right? Again, we talked about it in the Himalayan 450.
You can't have it all.
Yeah, that you have to change oil and valves at 6,000 miles on a Himalayan 450, and I'm like, that's kind of a lot. But yeah, I have to change oil every 4,000 miles on the Tenere, and like that's aggravating. But yeah, to not have to do valves, and my WR is the same way. I have to change oil every 3,000 miles on my WR, but it's like
oil is $60, dude. It's such a small thing for me. Like I'm just kidding around about the high maintenance thing. The valves are the big problem, you know. And that was it was $1,200 to do the valves for the dealership to do my Tiger. And it was about $1,000 for the dealership to do my 1090. And since that, I'm like, you know what? I'm just probably going to go back to. I used to do it myself all the time. I got lazy in no time, so I'm like, I'm just going to start doing it myself.
I think your point matters though, because think about it. If you don't change your own oil, every 4,000 miles, you're taking your Tenere to the dealership.
Yeah.
So, I mean, on average, that means every other year or every spring, right? Depending on who you are and how you feel about maintenance. But the premise is still the same, that I agree with you that I used interval as a metric, and even though I think valves are a serious job and oil is something you can do in half an hour or less, that doesn't mean people do it. So it is something to consider.
I would love that to be your poll for this episode. Who changes their own oil and who brings it to the dealership?
I'm writing it right now.
Yeah, I think that would be a good information to know. I'm just curious. It's so easy to change your oil.
Yeah.
You can have the most complicated motorcycle on the planet, and you got to change your own oil, man. Come on.
No,
Get to know your motorcycle. If you're out in the woods and your bike, the crap hits the fan, so to speak, dude, get intimate with your bike, man. You should know that bike at least halfway as good as you know your woman. I mean, it's take the skid plate off every once in a while, see what's under there, Free advice, free marriage advice by Mark.
Forget the quick shifter opener. We're totally just putting that in there. Just take the skid plate off and see what's going on under there from time to time.
You got to check and make sure nothing's bounced up in the undercarriage.
It's funny stuff. I'm trying to think if there's anything relevant about the KTM 890 we didn't discuss. If memory serves, they have cruise control on the current version of it and all that extra stuff.
Yeah,
so
they've got all the
techie
fancy
stuff.
I mean, you looked at one when you were looking at your T7. You ended up not buying an 890, and you got some pretty good offers on as far as your capability of buying an 890 when you were looking.
No, that's why I brought up pricing. Is that at the time the deals were really good, and I'm talking.
And you still chose the T7.
Yeah, and on paper, there's reasons why that doesn't make sense, but that's the taste factor, right? Like there is no metric for that. That in the end, it was I knew about Long Haul Paul. I knew back when I bought that he was on it and had put over 100,000 miles on that engine. And I'm a sucker for character, right? Like, it's funny because what did we start this out with? We were talking about the 1090. And some of the other stuff, that the engine character of the Tenere is so similar to my Scrambler, and that's what I love in a twin.
Yeah.
And so I really, really like it. It's funny because we talked about the Ibex 450 the other day, and it has the same engine character. That's like, I have some complaints about the Ibex, but honestly, man, it sounds incredible. So I forgive a lot of stuff, and I think that's between knowing where it had been. Andy has done all of the homework on the most crazy stuff I would ever want to do with it. Affordability, but in the end, it's just it speaks to my soul. That was really the thing that was hardest to avoid. KTM, I should have said it before. I love the way that KTMs are very approachable. I love the way that they're brash and they like to make power, but they do have a few idiosyncrasies on sound and cam chain noise that I find particularly aggravating. And you love it or you hate it. Like it's one of those things that
it's a thing.
It's a bag of hammers to me. I can't get around it.
The KTM forums, there's always a new guy going, "What is that noise?" And we're like, "It's normal. It's going to grenade itself." No, it's not. It's really not. No, it's totally fine. There's a small army in there. They've all got ball peen hammers, and they're hitting on that engine casing, but it'll be fine. It's strong. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's a cat purring that has one of those electronic voice changers or something like that. Like there's something going
it smoked too many cigarettes back in the day.
Yeah, there's something going on there. So, what else do we have on the list here that you've ridden?
I have not ridden any of these other bikes that we are going to talk about, although I have sat on a BMW F900 GS. Every time I go into a BMW dealership and they have one, I sit on it because I'm completely infatuated with that bike. I need to ride one. I really need to ride one. Yeah, I think that bike has a lot going for it.
I look forward to, it's funny how this has become like life after 40 for me. I look forward to eating crow on this particular one, right?
All right.
I'm not particularly keen on the newer BMW since the old F800. And so I've not really considered it. And I think part of it has been, and again, looking at the price, that I was actually kind of shocked by it. Because I'm trying to remember if I put the premium or the base model. I think I put the base model price.
That's a base price you put on there, and that's not the one I would buy, unfortunately. So add another couple G's to that.
And that was it, is that BMW seems to price you to get on the internet, look at the price, and then come into a dealer and learn that they don't import that model, like they import the premium model. But price has kept me away from it. But yeah, I'm curious about the stats, like, and if I rode it, would it, completely shatter my view? Because that's what's happened with other bikes, is I've ridden them and I'm like, I didn't think I would like this. Actually, that's the backstory to the Tenere. For folks who haven't heard me talk about it before, I went to a Yamaha demo ride back in like 2015, and I wanted to ride the FJ09 and the new XSR 900. Like, I was so pumped on that, and neither were available. And so I'm like, well, what's open? And like, well, there's that FZ07 right there. I ended up writing an article about that bike. Like, that was the whole thing, is that engine. I was just smitten with it. So that was why, the T7 was something I knew I was going to love when it came out, because that was an unexpected experience from the get-go.
Gotcha. So, that's cool.
Weird side
I should
story.
link that article.
It's actually one of the bigger hitters on my website. It's very old. I bet if I read it today, I would be embarrassed by it. But yeah, it was FZ07 first ride review.
It's called personal growth, brother.
It's a true story. So,
have you sat on an F900?
No. Ironically, oh my God, I'm totally going to forget his name. Tom is an instructor. Tom Asher. Tom Asher came to the Scramble last year. And he knew some people there, but what he wanted to do was not necessarily what they wanted to do. And they're like, well, you should get with Drew, and he can show you around. And so I took Tom Asher on a tour of the scariest stuff I know, or at least was available with the amount of time that I had to show him around and then get back in time to do rally business. And he followed me around I was on my WR, and everybody else with me was on basically dirt bikes, and he chased us around on that F900 and, made it work no problem, and probably did some stuff better than I did on a little bike. So
he's a phenomenal motorcycle rider.
Yeah, like the dude knows how to ride, right?
Yeah, this is not a entry level motorcyclist we're talking about here.
But it was a pretty good display of the F900 is highly capable in places where
Paul Torres is riding one now. You know that, right?
You are shitting me, right?
No.
I have not.
You didn't know that?
No. Breaking news on the podcast. Paul Torres has switched to BMW.
Yeah, he's on a BMW 900. Yeah, he absolutely is.
I am as peaked about this as I was about Johnny Walker racing the Tiger 900 at
that was pretty awesome too.
And very impressed with the way that played out. I was quite nervous for Triumph there.
It was pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, it was.
That 900, let me tell you, dude, it when I first saw one at my buddy's dealership, I was waiting for it to come out, because when I saw the pictures, I was like, that bike looks really cool. And I never liked the F800. I was never a fan of it. I thought it was meh. It was like a BMW KLR.
You didn't like that look?
I didn't like that squinty-eyed look. And I've had BMWs before, too. Everybody thinks I'm a KTM guy, and I am. But I've had Triumphs. I've had KTMs. I've had BMWs, plenty of them. And I had an F650 GS Dakar, like one of my first dual sport adventure bikes. And I just wasn't, the 800 was never on my radar. The 900 is a completely different motorcycle. And when you sit on it, the ergonomics, as much as I liked the ergonomics on the Touareg 660, I really like the ergonomics on the 900. The one I would buy has the little, you ever played with the Wonder Wheel thing that the BMWs have? That little thing on the handlebar?
Dear listeners, you would never believe that Mark is presently petting me the wrong way, but he is petting me the wrong way right now.
Oh, yeah. I'm going against the grain.
Who's the Luddite now?
I'm just telling you, dude. That as a Luddite, that Wonder Wheel makes using technology exceptionally easy. I freaking love that thing.
Yeah.
And I like that feature of it, but the ergonomics really set it apart for me. I love the looks of that bike. I want the ugly ass neon green one, not the red, white, and blue one.
Yeah.
And I want the Wonder Wheel with all the things. And by the time I'm done, I'm probably 18 to 20 grand done with this bike. I really want to ride one to see if it's what I think it is. The wheels, I think you can get tubeless or tube type wheels, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting.
I think it's a very interesting motorcycle, and I don't think it gets as much press as it deserves. For whatever reason, I just don't see people talking about it very much.
Couple interesting stats right off the bat.
Yep.
3.8 gallons of gas, lowest in class.
That's crappy. I agree.
That's interesting. But 32-inch seat height, also lowest in class.
Yeah.
So lowest as in like the lowest to the ground, which
Sure.
is kind of I score that as an advantage, right? Like,
Oh, I can flat foot that bike.
Yeah.
I have to be on tippy toes on my bike on the low setting.
yeah, it's
So-
9 inches of suspension travel in the front, 8.5 in the back. Which I'm kind of like scrolling back and forth here. I actually think that's better than the Tenere 700 stock.
Yeah.
And it's almost 2 inches shorter.
And look at those suspension numbers.
Yeah.
Very, very good suspension numbers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is that you're getting all the ground clearance with the low seat height. Again, I talked
Yeah.
about that in the Himalayan 450 episode, that it's
Right.
like if you can get all the suspension and ground clearance and have a lower seat and not feel so cramped on the bike, you have a huge
Yep.
advantage on a big bike.
Yep. You've got good horsepower. You've got good torque numbers. You've got good maintenance intervals.
Yeah, the F800 or F900 was the one bike I couldn't find a dyno run. So they claim 105 horsepower, 69 foot-pounds of torque, but I assume that it's much. Well, I shouldn't say much. I assume it's below 100. They just advertise that, but 6,000 mile oil interchange intervals, which to me is standard, right? That's what my Triumph has been for a long
Yeah.
time, and most
Yeah.
bikes have been that way for quite a bit. So
It's
no,
an interesting bike.
yeah, I like I said, I hope I eat crow on this, that I have dismissed it up to this point, partially betwing technology and price. So we'll
Now
see.
I'm definitely going to go to hit up my buddy at the dealership and ask him if I can ride one for a couple hours, dude. He'll let me, and I'm going to tell you what it really is like.
When Mark and I disagree, it'll be good.
Hey, by the way, they do make a 900 GS Adventure as well,
Yeah.
which we didn't really talk about or consider, but that looks more like the older 850, and it's got like a bigger tank and all that,
Right.
but that bike also does exist. I'm just a little bit, I'm thinking it's kind of in a strange place in the marketplace. I'm not sure who's looking for a middleweight bike with a ginormous fuel tank. Like, I feel like you might as well just buy a touring bike, like a GSA.
Well, it'll be interesting, right? Because it's to your point, like that. This gas tank is probably completely reasonable for what most people need. Like I can do 160 miles on my Tenere with a stock tank with 4.2 gallons. Like it's totally possible. And if I don't ride like a complete asshole, I could probably do 200.
Yeah.
So that stuff's there. And I hope that BMW has figured out what I'm, a little miffed about Triumph, that it's like, no, create a GS that we can beat off-road and that it's light and fun and all that stuff, and then create a GSA for the people that want to, camp and take it easy and enjoy themselves and want the extra, extra gas and stuff. So.
Yep.
The let's see here, on this list as well is the new Suzuki V-Strom 800DE.
It's a very good-looking motorcycle, in my opinion.
That bike really, I have so many questions. I've actually had a chance to ride one briefly. A very nice gentleman came to the Denny Boom Backcountry Byway fundraiser, and I took everybody out on an intermediate ride, and it had rained the day before, and most of the terrain was like, some of the creeks were high and whatnot, and everybody's going pretty well. And then we got to a section that Revenge of the Clay was definitely what was happening. It had tacked up to perfection, where it was, peanut butter and evil and all that other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I rode his bike a little bit to get it, unscrewed. As you and I make the joke, I'm the fat bike recovery expert sometimes.
Yeah,
It's like,
hey,
hey, you look like you're not having a good time, and I like to get bikes out of these conditions. If you want, I'll just kind of take care of that for you. It's like, no, absolutely, So it's like, okay.
Sweet.
I love the engine note on that V-Strom. It sounds really good, and to me it seems like super torquey. Like it's got a lot of juice down low is what it felt like. And again, I didn't ride it on the highway. I didn't ride it on the side roads, so the pavement experience is not one that I really know of. What is interesting is I'm getting off of my Tenere at 450 pounds and getting onto a 500 pound 800 in the wet clay with probably street tires. They were like 80/20s, so they were getting their butt kicked pretty good. So it's not the best representation of it, but to me I could feel the weight. But it was also like lower to the ground. So if you're definitely more of that adventure tourer and you're kind of a sucker for engine character and stuff, I'm like, no, I'm totally on board with this. Like this engine feels good. It's torquey. It's the stuff I like. It's a little lower to the ground, so you can get your feet down very comfortably. If memory serves, there's a lot of the technology and all that extra stuff that's on there. And like you said, I am also a sucker for its looks. They've got that, it's like that cement gray rally yellow thing going on, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm all about that. It
looks like the old DR Bigs.
Yeah.
Remember them things?
Yeah.
It's a cool looking bike, man. And when I was in college, the V-Strom was a relatively new motorcycle, and one of my buddies, he was kind of like an overlander before it was overlanding. Like he just like left one day. He was my roommate, and he just went to the desert. I don't live near the desert. I live in freaking Georgia. He went to the desert. He was like, he gave me like 3 months of rent, and I didn't know when he was coming back. He eventually came back. It was before cell phones. I didn't know. But that V-Strom was a bike he introduced me to. I didn't even ride motorcycles yet. We would go to the dealership as two guys without motorcycles looking at that original V-Strom, the 650, just dreaming of what we would do one day.
Right.
And I knew that I would have an adventure motorcycle at some point in time because of that original V-Strom 650. And I think the heritage of the V-Strom is incredibly interesting and more complex than people give it credit for. It's had a lot of incarnations over the years.
Oh, absolutely. Like I watch them on Marketplace quite a bit, and I think to your point, right? Like so many of us motorcyclists, and I'm guilty too, right? We buy on sex appeal, like that's a huge thing. And that is not what the historic V-Stroms have been selling like at all. They're extremely capable, extremely sensible motorcycles, and 19-inch front, 17-inch rear. You know,
they were street bikes
for a long time, whatnot. But like I've still told people, I'm like, dude, you can buy these gently used V-Stroms, do absolutely anything you want on them, and they're highly affordable and highly capable. They just don't look like a rally bike the way the modern adventure bike crops do.
Yeah. My brother had the V-Strom 1000, and he rode that thing in the dirt like he launched it off a cliff one day. I mean, it was held together with zip ties, all the plastic and all that stuff before we really knew any better, you know. They're just, if you were going to go to Alaska and back, a V-Strom would be an excellent choice. You'd never hear of problems. They look good. They're comfortable. I mean, I don't know about the new ones, but the old ones had, what was that sport bike? The
SV650.
Yes, the SV650 engine, just tuned differently. It's phenomenal, dude. Phenomenal.
This is a very different animal. It came up in conversation the other day because people have talked about like, well, Suzuki hasn't made a new bike, and I'm like, you don't understand. This V-Strom engine is brand new. Like this.
Yeah, they almost shouldn't have called it a V-Strom.
I would agree with you, but P-Strom sounds horrible because there's already the Wee-Strom, right?
Well, and P-Strom sounds like something that happens when you hit like 45 years old, you know, and you got to start seeing some specialists.
So that is a horrible name, but yeah, the new Parallel Twin 800 is a completely clean sheet engine. So the bike. The 800DE is, I mean, it's very competitive on all the statistics with exception of weight. 507 pounds? Other than the 1090 and the Desert X. Yeah, so it's like third in line for heaviest bike on this list. But, I mean, and I have 3,700, basically 4,000 miles for oil change intervals.
That's the shortest interval on this entire list, and it's another Japanese motorcycle. Oh my god!
Yeah, and that is interesting because I looked for two different sources for that, and Suzuki, unlike so Yamaha, you can look up your manual, and KTM is the same. That's what I love about KTM. That's how you and I talked about that. Is you just go to their website and just go to manuals and just put in the model, and you can just download it. You can download their manual right off of there.
I've got it on my phone.
Yeah, it's
always there in case it breaks down in the woods.
Same. It's saved on my phone, so I have my owner's manual. Same thing.
Yes.
But Suzuki didn't have that, and I was like, the resources I'm using to look at the owner's manual make me somewhat question that number. But considering it's 4,000 miles on my Tenere, it's not out of the realm of belief. That they want to do this like frequent oil change, long range valve thing, which I don't know. I don't know if Suzuki did that or not, but we know Yamaha did do that. But yeah, it's got more suspension travel than the Tenere does. But it does, to me, it does feel lower to the ground despite having long suspension. I'm assuming it's the.
That's shocking that it has more suspension travel than the T7.
Yeah, but
absolutely shocking. I did not know that.
The seat height is it's marginally lower. So I guess I could concede. I don't know if the guy's bike I rode had lowered it, but it felt a lot closer to the ground. And like I said, it felt heavier. But ultimately, it's a very capable machine. And I'm trying to look at what was the price.
By the way, I said it was shocking that the suspension had more travel, and I set that up for you, and you didn't even take it. Shocking suspension. Come on, Drew. You got to take these a little bit better, man.
11,600 is the price for that.
That's a great price for an extremely capable motorcycle, dude.
That actually feels cheap to me too, because a lot of people have complained about pricing on that, and I think cruise control is not stock, and I think that's what's also made a lot of people mad, is that there's still quite a few bikes in this range that don't have cruise control. And to defend the people who are upset about that, I have a strong suspicion some of these manufacturers are trying to protect their flagship big bore adventure bikes. And I think that's part of what's going on.
Maybe that's the dumbest thing they could do. That bike, by the way, the V-Strom 800DE, if your 11.5 price is right, $1,500 more than the DRZ 400S, the new one.
Oh God, that's hilarious when you put it. Because what is it, $8,000 or $8,900?
No, it's like almost $10,000 for that new DRZ, whatever they're calling that new DRZ.
I think it's
400.
$8,999 something, because it's not over
$9,999.
I don't think so. But again, send hate mail to school me. But yeah, it is quite pricey for that new heavier DRZ.
This V-Strom looks like a bargain, dude. Yeah,
that's kind of funny when you think about it, because you're getting a lot of stuff. Two completely different customers, in my opinion, by a large margin. So
I need to go sit on one. I'll be honest, I don't even know who sells Suzuki in my area. I have no idea. I haven't looked at Suzuki's in 20 years.
I'm trying to think, does CCM? I thought CCM had Suzuki. I'm trying to think I've ever noticed one in there. But I want to pivot to the Africa Twin. I've ridden a couple different Africa Twins, although I think they were the same generation. I think they were the first.
They're a little bit hard for me to keep track of, because they're another one that seems like they changed that bike quite a bit over the years, and now there's a couple different variations available as well. 2019,
let's see here, how'd that work? They did the original Africa Twin, which I love. I think that was 2016, if I recall. And then in 2019, they did a body refresh, but I actually think they had done the Adventure Sports before they did a full body refresh. And so now they have that double trim thing going on. And per listener comment, you could get the Adventure Sport with the new one has like a 19-inch front that really is the true like adventure touring versus adventure off-road kind of feel that they're doing. So I think Honda's got that right. To your point about, DRZ 400 V-Strom, whatever, like we've already talked about in other episodes. The way that Honda has, again, the Transalp is on this list. The truth is that the Africa Twin actually outclasses the Transalp in every category except weight and price. Like it's kind of sad that that's the case. Actually, now I'm over here like trying to scroll back and forth, trying to look at the seat height, trying to figure out if where the seat height stacks up on the Transalp. 33.7. Yeah, Africa Twin even has a lower seat height than the Transalp.
Are you kidding me, dude?
33.5 versus 33.7.
Here's another question for your show notes. If you bought a Transalp, I would like to know why.
I have a friend that has one.
Really?
He rode my T7 first and bought the Transalp.
And he bought it to ride what sort of terrain?
He's more of an adventure tourer. I think he'll do gravel roads and easy stuff, but he's already learned, as most of us, and as I will learn soon enough, that it's like, okay, I'm too old for this shit. Like, this isn't fun anymore. I've taken him to places in Kentucky, and unfortunately, we've dropped his bike on some creeks and whatnot, and it's just they're expensive toys, and it's just at some point,
the Transalp is significantly cheaper than the Africa Twin, so I suppose there's a point there. I take it back. I'm sorry for upsetting anybody.
No, well, what I find really interesting is this was a 2020 bike, so I don't know where they're at now. A 10.1 to 1 compression ratio, which I love. Because to me, that's I did a big dual sport episode way back when I did the show solo a little bit. Mm-hmm. To me, what you want is the most amount of horsepower with the least amount of compression. Like that's what you want. I want a low stress engine that's making horsepower and torque.
Makes sense.
Because then you don't have to do much to it. The Africa Twin is 8,000 miles between oil changes, which way back when, like my 250L, that was huge.
It's respectable still. It's huge.
Right. Yeah, to your point, it's not as great as some of the European brands have gotten great with engineering and synthetic oil, blah, blah, blah. But still, 8,000 miles between oil changes, like you can beat on an Africa Twin for a long time. Mm-hmm. But I love that 1100 engine, like that. Well, it was the 1000 when I rode it, but it's like this thing's 998 cc's or whatever it is, and has a ton of punch. and it sounds as rowdy as my Scrambler does, and I've enjoyed blasting it up Spass Creek Road and then at the Holler where KXCR raced over Hardwicks Creek's the name of the place, doesn't matter. I'm impressed on how capable it is, and it's similar to your 1090 that it's like if you have all the skills, that bike can do anything. But it is heavy, and if you're not prepared for it, it will get out of shape, and it is ugly because it's heavy and it's hard to get back, whip it back into shape. If you've done something done, you'll wad up pretty good. And that part's not fun. And
it's again because a lot of that weight is in that tank. It's a big steel tank.
Right.
My bike doesn't even have a steel tank. I have no idea why my bike is so damn heavy. But the Africa Twin has a giant steel tank. I've not ridden one, but my buddy Tyler had one for a short amount of time. And we went to Ocala, Florida riding. I had to help him push it off the trailer. I thought I was going to have a hernia. Push. It felt heavier than my 1090, which my 1090 apparently is heavier than that Africa Twin. I was like, my goodness, this thing is heavy. We went and rode some sandy roads like right off the bat. I thought he was gonna die. I think he was like dry heaving on the trail. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I know why, because that bike is heavy as crap. I mean,
it is heavy. I mean, it's 500 plus pounds. I forget what it is, 501-ish, something like that, low teens, whatever.
It ranks up there with the Desert X and the V-Strom that we just talked about, my 1090, and the Africa Twin. They're all over 500 pounds.
Right. So it is heavy. I mean, especially we're talking middleweight, so to speak, but, like I said, D's in there. The suspension's softer, so like if you're super aggressive, you're like, duh, I'm going to buy a KTM, right, and get the awesome suspension and ride like an idiot. But I think the Africa Twin splits the middle, that the suspension is very good for the average consumer, especially a consumer that's going to take a 500-pound bike and do any remotely difficult off-road stuff. It's highly competent. Man, I love the way that engine puts down power. To me, it feels like it's more tractable than the KTM. And actually, I might even go as far as to say it's more tractable than the Tenere, but that might be a weight thing. That might just simply be that it's torquey and it's fat. That's the Scrambler's whole shtick, right? It's torquey and it's fat. That's why it feels like it can go anywhere. But I just have never felt like I had wheel spin issues on the Africa Twin the way I have on the Tenere and most of the KTMs. So I think the Africa Twin is in both positions that it is a phenomenal bike. It is very affordable considering what you get. However, on the used market, people are still very proud of them. I'm just now finally seeing them dip below $8,000 for the first generation. So if you can find a low mileage one, you can get a killer deal. And what are they now? Well, the 2020 was up to 14.5. I think they're right around in that range now. If you buy the base model, I think it's still under 15 grand. But you have to want, 1100cc 500-pound bike, because that's still the reality. And
did you ride the DCT? Because we can't talk Africa Twin without talking about DCT. You know what I mean?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think I actually did an episode in the first or second season about automatic transmissions. I want to ride the DCT.
So you have not.
And hubris wise, I believe I will think it's interesting. I will be impressed by the technology, and I will say, no, thank you. I do not want that for me. But I would like to, and I've compared notes with a couple different people. I've been trying to figure out who the target audience is for DCT, because I think there's some
scooter riders.
I think that there are people who like scenic adventuring.
Yeah.
And the mechanics of shifting gears and engines and all that other stuff has very little to do with their enjoyment of motorcycles. And I think the DCT works great for people that are in that place. Like you said, like it's a pejorative to call people scooter riders, but that's the reality, that it's like, no, like the mechanics of the bike have
actually
nothing to do
wasn't
with
saying
enjoyment.
it as a mean thing.
Agreed.
It sounded mean, but it really wasn't. And also, I'd really like to, I don't know, I'm sure you could find out, how many do they sell DCT versus standard transmission,
Man, I heard a podcast, I want to say in the past 12 months, actually, where somebody talked about that, and it was high enough that it blew my mind.
Really?
That it was like above 30%.
What?
Yeah,
I do find that
and
hard to
boy,
believe.
again, if anybody remembers or has this information, please, dead serious, email it to me because I do want to know.
Yeah, and then let me know why you're listening to other adventure motorcycle podcasts. Come on, we put an episode out every week, you guys. There's no need to support High Side, Low Side, or
Stop it right now.
Adventure Rider Radio. It's all in good fun. It's all in good fun. I'm teasing.
Yeah, it was enough that I was shocked by it. And I've made this point, like in the car world, because I think DCT is an incredible idea for automatics. And I'm surprised we've still used torque converters and why we didn't use that in bikes and blah, 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 blah. But it's interesting tech. Like I said, I want to experience it because you can now get it on the Goldwing, the Rebel 1100, the Africa Twin.
They make a Rebel 1100?
This is a wild episode. You're telling me the Polaris has now switched to BMW, and my mouth is wide open like, what?
Dude, when I think Rebel, I think 250, bro.
No, we had a guy at the office that had one. Like I saw one in the flesh not that long ago.
Not a Shadow, a Rebel.
It is. So that is what they've done is if you look at the Rebel 300.
Okay.
All you do is imagine a Rebel 300 with a 500 engine in it. From the CB500,
bore it out,
and now, imagine a Rebel 300 with an Africa Twin engine in it. And that's the Rebel 1100.
I did not know that existed.
Yeah.
That's not my. I'm not the target customer.
Man,
I had no idea that was a thing.
I got to tell you, we're really taking a tangent here. So listeners, bear with me.
I'm fine with it, dude. They can just deal with it.
For those of you that came here for adventure, we're going to take a trip down Cruiser Lane.
That makes it a bigger adventure. Adventure is what happens when things don't go as planned.
As a guy who started out on cruisers, because my dad's a cruiser guy, still is, I thought that Victory was kind of cool because Victory was like this like modern stealthy, 1990s hard angle stealthy.
It was the anti-Harley American motorcycle.
Yeah, it was everything that Harley wasn't. And I actually think that the motorcycle world is lesser because Victory's gone. I love Indian. However, we didn't need to kill Victory to keep it. And I get it from a financial perspective, whatever. I think Honda mastered that. I think now, if you want to have a cruiser and you don't want a Harley and you don't want something that looks like a Harley, dude, that Rebel 1100 is spot on. It is totally taken up. Yeah, it's taken up Victory's mantle, right? Like, I'm not real keen on the Rebel 300, 500, or 1100 styling. It's not my shtick. Victory Gunner is probably more my shtick if you want to do it that way. Obviously, I'll always be partial to that what was it, early 2010s Speedmaster. I don't really care for the new one, but I love the one that I had, right? But that 1100 engine's killer. Like, have you ever, because my buddy Curly had an Akrapovic pipe on his Africa Twin. Oh my god,
but that was badass.
Oh my lord, like it was sweet music. Like I actually think I would put it as a better sound than my Tenere with a pipe, and it rivals my Scrambler for my favorite engine note. Like it is so good. Yeah, it's like. I think I would actually go carbureted Sportster, my Scrambler, than the Africa Twin. That's probably like the best exhaust sound on the planet. Like it's incredible. Yeah. So no, they really nailed it by putting that engine in that bike because that 1100 is
got some reading to do.
It's got all the torque and it probably spanks a lot of Harley's. Like the Sportster and everything else. Now we're in a whole new place now because they have the 1250, 975 or whatnot. But back before they were just doing Milwaukee.
3/4 of our audience has no idea what we're talking about, including myself.
I'm talking out my ass right now, but I am very curious. Like, what does the 1100 Rebel stats look like versus the Milwaukee 8? Because I bet the 1100 cranks out some ponies.
You'll have to check it out, man. Check it out and see what it is. I did not mean to bring everybody down that little avenue. Sorry about that, everybody. But I did not know. I think Rebel, I think 250. That's all I think. I think MSF safety course motorcycle.
Yeah, I think Honda Shadow, I don't think it's officially gone forever, but I think Honda and Yamaha are both kind of getting away from the cruiser market. In fact, Yamaha, I think, may have finally killed Star. I'm not sure. But anyway, let's see. What else is left on the list? We talked about...
We briefly mentioned the old... why don't you segue into the Transalp? Because that kind of goes hand in hand a little bit
No,
with
I
what
like
we were
it.
talking about.
And that's unfortunate, right? Because I haven't ridden it yet. And because
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually, in my soul, I actually think I'm a Honda guy. I like sensible base model motorcycles that I can modify to whatever, that are highly affordable and need nothing, like you don't have to work on it. So I said,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's always listening to me talking about 250L, 300L, because you can just beat on it forever and it doesn't care.
Yep.
So I wanted the Transalp, but obviously I don't even know if it was out at the time. And I'm a little nervous that they took a street bike engine, put it in an adventure bike the same way that Yamaha did. But I'm so freaked out by the oil sump on the Transalp, and I'm not sure if the subframe, that was something I was going to tell you earlier, the difference between the KTM and the Tenere. The Tenere has a subframe that goes under the engine to mount skid plates to. So it's translating more of the weight to, we'll say, engine mounting points in the frame versus putting rubber bushings on the bottom of an oil sump and then mounting a skid plate to it is Triumph.
Funny as out of all the 890 problems I've seen, I've never seen that be one of them.
And that's a great point, right?
It's hilarious, though.
Maybe we finally figured out how to mount skid plates and use engines as stressed members to not need that. And maybe the gas tank being what it is. And like to your point, like having those big polymer gas tanks is actually pretty good at shock absorption because the gas tanks bend instead of break, and you'd have to.
I've only seen a handful broken.
Yeah, you'd have to really beat on those to mess that up. But at the time, that was a little bit of a worry that I had, and I have the same one about the Transalp, about whether or not it's funny because there's a Fortnite video where Ryan F9 calls it a bollard. He's like this bollard sticking out of the bottom of the engine, and he shows great pictures of it or whatnot. Like that's the thing, is I just don't think that Honda. I think Honda made a great adventure touring bike, and just like the Tenere, you can probably turn it into a killer off-road fighter, but you got to throw a little bit more money at it just because of.
It reminds me of like what they did with that CB500X or whatever it was called.
Yes.
Like, okay, they made a really cool, really good, slightly underrated adventure touring motorcycle that if you bought $3,000 worth of rally raid kit could be a really incredible weapon in the right hands. They went the same way with the Transalp. I heard they're coming out with Transalp, and everybody got excited that it was going to be like an off-road, Africa Twin, basically, and it just wasn't that.
Yeah.
In my mind, I see it as kind of a neutered Africa Twin. It's a road bike. It's not necessarily like, I don't want to say it's not exciting because I've actually never been on a motorcycle that's not exciting. But
True story.
It's not blowing you out of the water with anything, and it just happened. It's just there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I want to ride it because I'm under the impression that the engine character is actually shockingly good.
It may be.
I've heard good things about the Hornet 750 as well. So my eyes are on. Like I said, in the fabric of who I am, I believe that I'm a Honda guy. Although Yamaha keeps making the bikes that I want, and obviously I now own two of them. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm anxious about the engine. And I apologize to the listeners. I've not had the chance to ride one yet. So hopefully, actually, if my buddy Craig comes to Red River Scramble, he might trust me with the keys. So maybe I'll get a chance to switch while we're down there. I'll finally get a chance to do that.
There you go.
And then I think the last thing on the list we didn't talk about was the Desert X, which does again fall into the same category where it is 1,000 and I've not ridden it yet. That opportunity may also fall in my lap. We'll see how that goes. But the Desert X to me is like right on par with the KTM 1090. It's actually almost like KTM got out of the 1090 game and Ducati's like, no, there's still room here. Like there's still a customer for this. And so what is it? Let's look at the stats for people listening who don't know. 518 pounds, 94 horsepower. That's on the dyno, by the way. 13.3 to 1 compression ratio. Maintenance interval 7,500 miles between oil changes.
Yeah, but wait until you get to that valve check on a Ducati.
Well, I don't think they're Desmo valves on that engine. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I think they are.
Okay, all right.
We're 50-50 then. We should have looked that up.
We should have looked that up because you're right. For the listeners' benefit, I made this list on my lunch break and literally ran out of time because to look up 10 bikes.
And he got honey mustard from his chicky nuggies on that little spot right there too, so it was a bit of a problem. That Desert X, the biggest problem to me is just I think it might be is it the second most expensive motorcycle, only to the 900 Rally Pro?
That is correct. Interesting. 5.5 gallons of gas. That is the most gasoline out of all of these.
Up high, by the way.
Yeah, you could take 2 gallons of gas out of it and drop 12 pounds off of it. And then...
Don't forget that Ducati sells a rear gas tank to fit on. Now, you can't fit luggage with that tank on, but they do sell a range extension to go on the back of that bike. It's very interesting.
So, obviously, I don't want to bore the listeners with something they can't see. Like I said, I want to put it on my website or something so you can click and download and look at it if you're like super nerdy. But I kind of did like Olympic scoring, where it's like, okay, you know, the bike with the most torque is the best. The bike with the lowest compression is the best. The bike with the longest maintenance intervals is the best. The bike with the most suspension travel is the best. The bike with the most gas is the best. And I kind of scored them, you know, best being the highest points and, you know, worst being the lowest points. So the bike with the most points was the best one. And I actually think the Honda Africa Twin and the KTM 890 and the Tiger 900 Rally Pro, based on the way I just suggested, were the winners. But then what I also did was I did it divided by price.
Oh, you are nerdy.
So that's exactly it. The Ducati Desert X is like $551 per point. Like it costs the most amount of money to get the performance that they're offering. So it's kind of funny how that whole situation played out.
Well, I will tell you that my buddy Luke has a Desert X. I've not ridden it, but I've sat on it, and it's another one of those bikes that when I sat on it, ergonomically speaking, I was like, holy crap, this bike feels amazing.
Yeah.
It is, in my opinion, and my brother and I have talked about this as well, it's the best looking adventure bike that's made right now. I love the twin headlights. I love the way the windscreen looks. I love the rally styling on it. I love the fact that you can put on an auxiliary tank on the back. I think that Ducati Desert X is hot as shit. That bike looks incredible. Now, I've never ridden it. It could suck. I don't know. But the Italians know how to make a good-looking motorcycle, dude. There's no doubt.
I agree with you that the front end LED, dual round headlights, right? Like I'm a sucker for that.
So
Speed. I always say that before, like Speed Triple, like for the love of God.
If the classic ones with the rounds.
If the 90s are coming back, then let's get the round headlights back out now.
When Triumph went to the weird bug eye headlights instead of those round ones, they screwed up massively, dude. Yeah, and that's from my 640 days.
Right.
The rounds side by side headlights. Now KTM's doing these stacked headlights. They're off the reservation with that, dude.
I think it was mid 2000s where Triumph was really big on that with the Speed Triple and whatnot, but still, it was rad. So yeah, I'm with you on that. The Desert X is another situation where I think of Andy and his Multistrada. That when I see the skid plate on the Ducati adventure bikes, I always just have pause. Like I'm just always like, something about the way that engine is out there to be exposed to the terrain freaks me out. Anybody who listening who has one, feel free to school me. Like I'm looking forward to hearing people having good experiences. I personally get wigged out, but that's the thing, right? Is perception is not reality, and I think you pointed that out earlier. Like the 890 is not. There's not an issue with the lower part of the engine of the skid plate. So
I've seen.
I may be working on old information, right? Having watched the stuff that used to happen to the Tiger 800 engines and whatnot. So
yeah, it's I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong doing what we do. It's for the most part, I think that all these bikes are pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, none of these bikes are junk. None of these bikes are crap. If you bought one of these bikes, a lot of times I talk about things and I'm just joking around, you know what I mean? But like none of these bikes are bad purchase, It's find out what's best for you.
Yeah.
And what your budget is and if you can really be honest with yourself about how you intend to use a motorcycle, man, stay away from all the marketing. Don't look at these magazines that are all printed out west and have pictures of guys on giant wide open deserts throwing rooster tails for 100 yards. that's not reality,
Yep.
you know? And I think that that's starting to percolate to the top a little bit.
Yeah.
I think there's kind of a shift in that line of thinking. I've heard some other podcasts and YouTube channels talking about that very thing. There's a lot to it. So,
Yeah. No, it's,
yeah, by all means, just don't think that whatever Drew and I say here is the golden rule. It's certainly not. It's just two idiots talking on a podcast.
I want to transition into picking what we think are the best choices for different segments in this, but I do want to shout out, like, Dork on the Road released that episode on YouTube, because I'm highly critical of YouTube. Like, I'll say probably
we
in
both
private,
are.
right? I don't like what YouTube has done to entertainment. But Dork on the Road released that great episode on, like, there's basically two types of adventure writers, and then a third one commenting on the internet. Like, I'm like, oh my God, that is 100% what's happening here. Because I have friends on both ends of the spectrum, and you know me, like, it's like I can't handle Facebook groups, and that's 100% the reason that there are people that are like, I'm just out enjoying the scenery. And there are other people that are like, I want to race an 800-pound adventure bike and crush everything. So, no, you described it to a T. And go watch that video, folks. That one's worth your time. Like,
it's a good video. Agreed. Agreed.
So if we're talking about middleweight adventure bikes and we're recommending the best performance adventure bikes, what are your picks?
Well, the best performance adventure bike, just based on performance, I'm going with my 1090 Adventure is the number one pick. I mean, on paper, I think the numbers speak for themselves. In experience, I still think that those numbers by the my butt dyno, you know, I think it holds true. Every time I ride another one of these bikes, for the downfalls of my bike, which, as I said earlier, are weight.
Yeah.
Weight is the number one problem on my bike. I think that it has so much. It's fast, it's quick, it's torquey, it's got loads of power whenever you need it. I think that even though it's arguably the oldest bike on this list.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, they stopped making them in like 2019, I think was the last
2020,
year. Definitely 2020 was last
mine's
year.
a 2019, so it may have been the last year they made it. They only made it for 3 years in America. I think that it's a phenomenal motorcycle. The crazy thing about the 1090 is now if you're buying a used one, the number one reason I haven't sold mine is that I'd be lucky to get $8,000 for that bike. I mean, you can buy a nice 1090 Adventure for $7,000 to $8,000 all day, and on paper, except for weight, it beats a lot of these other motorcycles in terms of performance.
To your point, it's more expensive to buy a used Africa Twin than a lot of those 1090s are. I also was looking at used 1090s when I was looking at the T7.
I remember, and I really love my 1090. So
you got a number 2 performance pick by chance?
Number 2 performance pick, I think that I have to think about it a little bit, but out of the ones I can't really speak to the ones I haven't ridden.
Agreed.
But the ones I have ridden, really like that 900 Rally Pro. I think that you can just flog that bike and it keeps asking for more, and I don't think it's going to let you down. I would love to own that 900 Rally Pro. And again, I would really like to have a 24 plus. Nothing against the 23s and earlier, but they changed some. I can't remember exactly what they changed, to be honest with you, on the fly. But that bike is really fun to ride, and it's really fun to ride fast. Yeah. And even on the street, I mean, we went up a street, Highway 60 here in Suches, Georgia, and I know it very, very well. I mean, it's just insane. Very confident. I was more comfortable on that bike going fast than I was on my 1090 going fast. Wow. So that's really great bike. Yeah, I think so. What about you?
I would actually go the other way. I think when it comes to performance, and I mean like the total package, like the most aggressive bike to ride aggressive off-road, I'm probably going to say the 890 Adventure R is probably the bike that is.
It should be up there.
Yeah, that really is prepared to do the most difficult things, because I think it has all these suspension advantages that you get on the 1090. And to your comments, maybe
the suspension's far better than the 1090
even more.
suspension.
Yeah, so the suspension is killer.
Yeah.
The power is not a lot, but it's more than you need in a lot of situations, and you can tame it with the technology that's available on the bike. Like I said, you could make an argument about the tank situation, but on paper, out of the box, the KTM 890 to me is the bike
to
that
be up there.
I feel the most comfortable going. We're going to take this to hard enduro, as I have also had the pleasure of witnessing a KTM 890 in a hard enduro. So
yeah, you're not watching a 1090 go through a hard enduro for sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
good call.
The 1090 Africa Twin Desert X, man, they bring a lot of ponies to the party. And I will also, I'm not going to pick this, but I do think that I might be surprised by the F900 GS out on the trail doing difficult things. It's unfortunate that I've not seen. It wasn't that Tom isn't capable. That wasn't the kind of event that we were doing. We were out exploring and having a good time. So I don't know where we stand on that. And the conditions were not quite hard enduro, but we're in that space, right? But so we could say something about that. But then I
feel like when you both need to ride an F900 is what this sounds like.
No, that's the truth. And I think I'm with you on that as well. That if I'm a performance buyer and money is not an object, it is very difficult not to consider the Tiger 900 Rally Pro. I do think that there are other bikes on this sheet that have some advantages over the 900 Rally Pro in the engine department especially, but it's like that engine's really good. That suspension, it's like 9.5 inches of suspension travel. Like there are other bikes that are twins that probably have, quote, better engines and maybe lighter, but they don't have more suspension. So it's interesting how that goes. Yeah, 5.3 gallons of gas. Like this does cover, it checks a lot of boxes in the performance realm, even though it's a little bit heavier and even though twins tend to put down a little power that's better off-road. But to me, it casts a wider net that while I bemoan all of the extra shit that comes on that bike, if money is not a problem, you can put less gas in it and get pretty wild with that bike. And obviously, like I said, I've ridden it as well. So
all the extra stuff is the downfall of that motorcycle.
Yeah. Right now, I think Dana is happy with what he's hearing because I'm saying that you and I agree that the Tiger 900 is a pretty significant performance purchase.
Yeah, I mean, this show was made to make Dana happy. Let's be honest. I mean, nobody wants Dana mad at them. So.
That's funny stuff. For the listeners' benefit, Dana has a Tiger, works at a Triumph dealership, has been on the show, and we talk Tiger stuff.
Well, he has a Tiger for now, but he's selling everything he owns, it seems like. So
you're not wrong.
That's another episode.
Let's go
calling you out, Dana.
Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Money is a major consideration.
All right.
And practicality is the driving factor. What is the best value motorcycle in this middleweight segment that we've been talking about?
All right. I'm not sure if you're going to like this or not like this.
I don't think
I'll
be.
But T7 is on my list for that.
Sure. You're saying that's your first pick for best value?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, I think the T7 is there, and the Touareg 660. I think they're both good values for what you're getting, personally. I guess, you might make an argument for the V-Strom or the Transalp. They just never really been on my radar very much. I don't think there's anything wrong with either of those motorcycles. I just think that of the ones that I'm familiar with that I've actually ridden and enjoyed, those two bikes are my picks.
It's interesting to hear you say all that, and I think to some degree I'm going to be contrarian because obviously I put my money on a T7.
But and you're a value buyer, so it has to be on your list.
You would think that would be the case, but it's odd that when I actually looked at the statistics. And when I look at the realm of, and this is what makes no sense, right? What do the average adventure riders need? Like we talked about that with the Himalayan and some other stuff. Like what the actual, what do you actually need versus the sex appeal that makes you buy a bike? I actually think that the Transalp is the best value buy. Now, it's the cheapest, so that's the cheat code, right? So I understand that. So then, yes, in that case, then the T7 would be my pick. But I'm actually impressed that lower seat, more gas, similar suspension, double the maintenance intervals, more power, more torque. Like you're actually getting a lot more. Oh, by the way, there's ABS, traction control, rider modes for less than what you're paying for the T7. You're actually getting more for the money, except suspension.
Okay.
Now that's a tough argument, right? So if you're paying 10.7 for a T7, or you're paying 10 for a Transalp, you are getting more suspension per dollar on the T7. But
I have a wrench to throw into your pick.
Hit me.
One thing we haven't talked about is resale value.
That's a good one.
I would 100% guarantee you that the minute you ride a Transalp 750 off the showroom floor, you're going to struggle to sell that bike. And compared to a T7.
I'm curious about that. What a great wrench. Because obviously I have another bike I want to mention too. But
by the way, Triumphs have horrible resale value. So.
Well, that's an interesting thing in the market right now. To me, the bike market, or at least the used bike market, is down. But if you buy a bike that's new, that's hard to get, you're still keeping your resale value.
Agree.
And I haven't looked for a Transalp in several months, so my information is dated.
Okay.
But I know you can get a T7 for $7.
Yep.
Because the T7 is flooded on the market.
You got to wait
now.
a little bit.
So I actually think that today a Transalp is more valuable than a T7 because the resale value has fallen off, and we're on a second generation T7. Maybe that's part of it, but I think everybody bought them during COVID, and they're done with them. They want something else.
$dollars.
Yeah, they want something else, and I think everybody's now realized that they're not getting their COVID premium back, and I think the prices are sinking into the basement because of that. So you could be right about that. That I think.
I could definitely be wrong.
I think people buy Hondas like crazy. What is it? The 300L is the number one selling bike in America. I can't wait for 3 years from now because they're going to be cheap as chips. I cannot wait because I want one. So we'll see if the Transalp does that. But that's a good point, though, to some degree. That there's no doubt the Transalp does not carry the sex appeal that the Tenere used to have, and obviously other new bikes on the market are going to have as they come out. I actually am with you. I think the Touareg is a killer best value bike. It is definitely more expensive than the other two bikes, and it's more expensive than the Suzuki. But I do feel like because I'm more of an off-road adventure bike person. Like if you're more of a touring person, then I think the Suzuki makes a ton of more sense because you are spending less, and it's definitely a quote more comfortable bike. I'm absolutely going to feel more comfortable off-road on the Touareg, despite some engine fussiness, like to your point, right? There's no doubt the Suzuki engine is better, but is it 50 pounds heavier? 50 pounds better. Like, I don't know if I'm willing to give up 50 pounds for what I think is a better off-road engine. That is a lot. If it was
it's a lot.
Yeah, if it was 20, the way we were talking about the T7 versus the Himalayan, you're like, it feels very different, right? At any rate, I think the Touareg, for what it is you're not spending a lot, and you're getting basically everything that you're getting on every other performance bike except horsepower. But it's the smallest engine, short of a KLR 650. So it's better than the T7 on a lot of the stats, and you're getting the full package there.
Right on. We agreed. Da-da-da.
Yeah, that's what's interesting, right? Yeah, to some degree, we've landed on same highest performance, same best value, and we've talked about none of this on the front end.
It's funny how sometimes we just agree on stuff, and sometimes we don't.
Aside from picking your own bike, since both of our bikes are on this list,
womp womp. I got to scratch that off my list here.
What choice for adventure bike on the middleweight list do you think suits who you are the most? I don't care what the justification is. We'll talk about that, but what do you think?
On paper, the 890 Adventure, hands down, is the bike I should be on.
Wow.
Real life, I have a serious hard-on for the Touareg 660 Rally.
Makes sense.
I really, really do. I don't hear of... I'm at a point in my life where I don't want problems.
Yeah.
And I don't hear of problems with the Aprilia. I think you're getting a very good-looking motorcycle. The Rally appeals to me for the things we've talked about already in this episode. And I finally got to ride my buddy Scott's. And while I wasn't blown away by the engine, I think gearing can help that significantly. the guy at the dealership told me that you can go from 80 horsepower on that standard one that people are getting up to 95 horsepower with the pipe and with mapping
on the Aprilia
procedures on the Aprilia Rally.
That's pretty impressive.
Yep. So you're gaining some. I know it's not all about horsepower, but you're gaining some things with that bike through tuning it and doing the exhaust. So I would really like to ride that with the proper gearing ratio. That bike, out of all the bikes on this list, has my attention. I really want to ride an F900, but it's way more money than I'm spending on a motorcycle. So that's a used market bike for me. But for new bikes, I think the Aprilia, I could see keeping my 1090, making it a road bike, buying that Aprilia, making it an off-road bike, and being much more manageable in my advanced age than the 1090 is. But until then, I'll just keep rolling my 1090 around.
Again, this is a hilarious statement that you and I have landed in virtually the exact same spot for me.
Ooh, are you going to pick the Aprilia?
Yeah, that's kind of wild because it's like it's almost a dead heat between. Yeah, the 890 and the Touareg are kind of a dead heat for me. And for me, the choice really is the bike that I feel the most comfortable doing difficult stuff on. I feel like the Touareg is just easier to manage off-road. That's really what it comes down to.
Bike, yeah.
The 890 is
felt really compact.
Yeah, it just is a much smaller bike. Just the way it feels, the way it carries its weight, the chassis just seems so much more intuitive. And I think I'd rather have the 890 engine. I mean, hell, I think I'd rather have the Suzuki engine than some of these other ones. But the truth is, like, man, that chassis is so good that if I'm not buying the bike I have, I just feel more comfortable on the Touareg. And other than bitching about tubeless rims, I'm going to love cruise control and all that other stuff because
you don't have to bitch about tubeless rims. You buy the Rally.
Right. No, I didn't even think about that because we didn't really put it on the list. I didn't know that much about it at the time. I just put the stock version on there.
It's brand new. I think the one they had was already sold.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
You're on it. And actually, to the listeners' benefit as we close out here, I didn't put the Moto Guzzi V85 TT on here. It has 6 inches of suspension travel. I absolutely love that bike, but I feel that it's firmly in adventure touring. And so I guess for lack of a better term, even though I have ridden it, I did leave it off the list. We already talked about the KLR 650. We could have put the Cove 800 on here as well. That would have been an interesting way to.
We probably should have because on paper that bike blows a lot of these other bikes out of the water, including the Aprilia Touareg Rally. By the way,
I would
destroys it.
Agree with that. And it's another bike that if I get lucky, I may get a chance to ride. CF Moto has an 800 that's on here. So I guess you could say American bias. I mean, despite the fact that I've had Cove's U.S. importer on the show recently. Gary was on the show, right?
If I had thought about putting the Cove 800 on here, I'd have suggested it because that bike, I really want to ride that bike.
It's weird because I kind of feel like the CF Moto and the Cove, even though on paper they're excellent for the U.S. market, I feel like the target customer isn't necessarily going to look at it. And the Moto Guzzi is the same, right? Like, I don't think that if we're talking about adventure to include anything more than whatever off-road, the Moto Guzzi's not necessarily included. And I think for Cove, it's like, if you have any dealership reservations, CF Moto and Cove are probably going to rub people.
They're not on the list at all then if that's the case.
And it's not true, right? It's like saying that Harleys leak oil everywhere all the time. That is not true anymore, but it's still...
Or that KTMs are higher maintenance than T7s.
Right, 100%.
As we've discussed.
No, 100%. So I apologize to the listeners. Those bikes deserve to be on a list, and I wish I had the stats to put them on here. And had I not thrown this episode together in 48 hours, I probably would have put that stuff out there. So if you're shopping in this space, please look those items up. It's worth your time.
Definitely an honor, especially the Cove, man. I've actually, when you mentioned that, I feel like an idiot for not putting that on here. We should have. So this whole episode might be very, very different.
I personally think
it's a disruptor.
Yeah, if you take the KTM 890 and the Africa Twin, you smash them together and you subtract X number of pounds, you kind of have a Cove 800. It's really interesting.
Oh man, I think the Cove 800. literally, when I was talking about the Aprilia Rally, I'm talking on the phone with my brother.
Yeah.
He's got the Aprilia specs up, and I've got the Cove specs up. The Cove beats a lot of these bikes.
Everything.
Every aspect. Yeah. The only hang up is that it's Chinese.
Yeah,
that's like the only thing.
I think it's under, let's call it 13.5. I forget what it is, but yeah, if you get the super duper rally version of the Cove 800, it's under 400 pounds. It has all the suspension. It's 9 inches of suspension.
It looks
travel,
freaking awesome.
Yeah, it's all those things. But yeah, it's one of those like, do you have a Cove dealer near you? Are you okay with buying a Chinese bike? And I think that's a serious hurdle for a lot of people, unfortunately.
It's a thing. Yeah.
So, and obviously, I'm apparently not immune to it because it was not the first thing that came to mind for me when I started making this list. So
racist. Yeah, Drew's gonna edit that out.
No Chinese or Italian. Anyway, okay. So apparently, you and I agree. If we're not picking our own bikes, it's hard to not want a 2R Reg Rally. How about that?
I will be honest. I did not see that coming out as the pick from both of us. So that's pretty cool, man.
This was a game when I was overseas the first time. We would be someplace and we would start this kind of thing. Like, okay, let's name all the stuff that's in this realm and let's pare it down until what we decide together is the best. And that's how I wanted to do this episode. And we didn't know where it would lead, and that is an interesting outcome.
It's almost like that game they were playing, like Kill, Marry, Screw.
Yes, shoot, what is it? Oh, what? Mary, kill? I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, whatever it was.
Bed, wet, or dead, or something like that.
Yeah, something, dude. Like it's the same exact game. We just played that with motorcycles, and you guys are all very welcome for the 2 hours of entertainment, information, education, and complete ludicrous dumbassery.
If I can put this in any type of digestible form, I'll throw it up on the website and try to remember to link in the show notes, and I will try to remember to put the poll at the end of the episode. Do you want to change your own motorcycle oil or not?
There you go.
Awesome. All right, sir. Anything else for the listeners, Mark?
Not for me, my friend. Thanks for having me on again.
All right. Cheers. We'll catch the listeners down the road.